Okay, welcome. Welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting for 1 p.m. Monday, September 27th, 2021. Two of us are in the room, and Commissioner Dare is joining remotely. At this time, the first item is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, so Commissioner Dare, we don't see a video, but we do see your name up here. I'll assume you're there at this time. Item number 1, public hearing, consideration of a resolution amending the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office 2021-22 fee schedule.
Commissioners, I just joined the meeting, so I don't know if Tom or
Yep. So we're on number 1, public hearing has just been opened. So Joe Brundage would be the one maybe, so or unless you're going to step in, Dan. So is Joe Brundage out there?
I am going to step in actually here. We reviewed county code and it turns out that we did not need a public hearing for this. It's an emergency fee and would go through Tom or Nick Lelak at this point in time. And I tried to get that taken off the agenda last week, so I apologize that that's still on here.
Well, so we can just acknowledge this. So public hearing was the just in case agenda item, but it sounds like we don't need to. So will this still be a resolution? I guess I'm looking at Dave now.
Yes,
But it'll be signed by county administrator?
it can be, yes.
Okay, so this is following a legislative fee changes, 3 items on the fee schedule, and yeah, just implement as passed by the Oregon legislature for bill number 554.
Yeah, those actually went into effect a couple days ago, so
Yeah.
this is lagging behind just a few days, but it deals with concealed handgun licenses.
Okay, but yeah, so these are just state-defined fees.
Right.
This-
It's just a $40 fee increase, I think, for a new concealed fee, and then there's a Saturday class. And then I think there was a renewal fee that went up $15 or $20. They were pretty minor fees. But like I said, we realized that they could be done without a public hearing and tried to strike that off through an emergency fee. So.
Not a problem. So let's acknowledge. So permit fee, $50 additional. So the new fee is $1,515. Is that the?
I don't know the dollar amount, but it did go up, I believe, $50.
Yep, that's fine.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, I'm just curious where the fee revenue will go and what it's going to be used for, the additional fee revenue?
I apologize. I told Joe Brundage that he did not need to be on this meeting since I did not think it was going to be a public hearing on the agenda. I'm not sure how much revenue that is or what those additional fees will go to, but I can follow up with Joe and have him communicate with you commissioners.
That would be great. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Okay.
All set?
Yeah.
So yeah, no action on item number 1.
So Dave, do you want to have him just approve the resolution and just be done with it?
I'm not sure, was there one put forward? I had
Yeah.
some.
There is a resolution number 068.
You could take action on that.
Okay, yeah, so then
But we would move county administrator signature, is that?
If it was put together as a resolution, I don't know, does it have Tom's signature? It should be a
No.
board signature.
Yeah, so if there's a resolution that's included in the packet that has the 3 commissioners'
okay.
signature, if they just approve that, I think that will enact the change.
Okay,
and then we're-
so the agenda, which is not required a public hearing, we have had a discussion. And at this time, there is a resolution number 2021-068, which is part of the packet, which is for board signature.
I move approval of resolution 2021-068, amending the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office 2021-22 fee schedule.
And I'll second the motion. It's Commissioner Adair.
All right, technology's working today. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Adair?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Okay.
Commissioners, I did a quick query on this bill in the legislature. It appears that revenue would be used for studies on effectiveness of gun-free zones, among potentially other things.
So then it sounds like it'll be a fee received at the sheriff's office, but maybe going to a pool at the state level?
Routed to the state and then used to study how to manage gun violence. It's interesting. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, item number 2, board order establishing overnight parking prohibition on Spring River Road.
All right. Good afternoon, board. For the record, Chris Doty, Road Department Director. Before you is Board Order 2021-042, which seeks to prohibit overnight parking on the improved parking areas on Spring River Road east of Harper Bridge and Sun River. As you're aware, we improved parking spaces in that location back in 2019 to support safe access to the Deschutes River, given the conflicts with adjacent traffic on Spring River Road. Now, without a board order or county code provision to specifically prohibit overnight parking, and you can read that as camping, that type of activity is essentially lawful and is subject to occur, and it has, and that's part of the reason why we're bringing this to you today. Is there has been some camping that has taken place in that area as not intended. So Board Order 2021-042 would provide law enforcement with a legal mechanism to go ahead and enforce that prohibition, and then cite violators and potentially provide them with the essential tow authority to ensure that the camping does not take place in that area. Any questions?
Yeah, no questions by me.
So without this board order, it is legal for people to camp there right now.
Correct. There was no provision that law enforcement could find that would allow them to cite and remove a vehicle in which someone was actively camping. There are provisions that they can utilize to tow abandoned vehicles, without this, but in terms of an occupied vehicle, we were told that this order would provide them with more of that clear distinction and the ability to cite and address the problem.
Interesting. Well, I'm in support of moving forward with this. I'm just curious whether there are other, comparably designated roads where we might run into the same issue in attractive areas, and if so, do we need to think about something more sweeping than this, long term?
Potentially, since I've been here, we've had this crop up twice. First was in areas where it's kind of in a neighborhood in Tumalo where people were parking, and it lent itself to a no parking, to basically a full parking prohibition was the outcome there. In this case, we built spaces specifically for parking, and camping was taking place. So, we've been dealing with it in a very specific manner, and I would think that I guess just to describe that as a very isolated problem that we've observed.
Okay.
But a lot of the rural roads, especially in southern Deschutes County, it's a very soft slope shoulder. So, even getting a trailer or an RV off of the edge of the road means you're in trouble. Having this improvement there with the extra wide lanes and the nice big green travel lane ended up being attractive for parking a vehicle, a recreational vehicle. So I do see this as a pretty unique situation.
Okay. Any other questions or?
Any questions, Commissioner Dare?
It's going to take her a second to respond. It booted her out for some reason, so I'm bringing her back over.
Okay. Welcome back, Commissioner Adair. If you're just joining us again, it sounds like you're bounced out and coming back in.
Commissioner, you're muted.
I saw that. Yes.
There we go.
To the next. Yes, I know it isn't amazing. It's what, my third Zoom today. So I don't know why it was a problem, but anyway, no, Chris, thank you so much for doing this. I know we had someone parked there, about a month ago now, and the community was really, really up in arms. And I'm happy to see this today. So thank you.
Yeah.
The board order, I will make the motion to approve Board Order number 2021-042, which prohibits overnight parking on the improved parking spaces east of Harper Bridge.
I'll second.
Great. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Adair.
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And chair votes yes, too. Well, thank you very much. A little bit of clarity on that situation.
While we're talking about Harper Bridge, can I just double check the no jumping off Harper Bridge or ordinance? When does that take effect?
It took effect the day after Labor Day.
Okay. So it's a little too cold to think about jumping off Harper Bridge right now, but so that'll be in place next summer.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 3, applications for Federal Lands Access Program.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, Cody Smith, County Engineer, Deschutes County Road Department. I'm going to, as I'm sharing my screen here, just give you a quick outline of what we're going to talk about here this afternoon. I'm going to give a quick overview of the Federal Lands Access Program, what it is. I'm then going to be sharing with you 2 proposals that the road department has prepared in response to a recent call for projects for the Federal Lands Access Program. And then I'm going to throw it back to Chris, who's going to talk to you about the next agenda item, which is in regards to some proposals for the Federal Lands Access Program that ODOT intends to submit. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so an overview of the Federal Lands Access Program, or FLAP. FLAP provides federal funding for county, state, city, or tribal transportation facilities that are located on or adjacent to or provide access to federal lands. The Oregon Federal Lands Access Program is currently estimated to receive approximately $35.7 million annually. The program requires a minimum funding match of 10.27% by the applicant. The calls for projects are typically issued every 2 years for the program. This current call for projects was a little bit late. We were expecting to see this last year, and it didn't come out till this summer. And the current call for projects is for projects to be delivered in federal fiscal years 2024 and 2025. The proposals for the FLAP program are jointly endorsed by the applicants and then also by the appropriate federal land management agency or agencies. The projects are typically delivered by Western Federal Lands Highway Division, which is a division of the Federal Highway Administration. As such, just wanted to note here that the cost estimates that you'll see with our proposals are for delivery of these projects by Western Federal Lands Highway Division. They are not the costs we had anticipate for the county to deliver these projects, which would be lower. So the road department has prepared 2 proposals in response to the current call for project. Those proposals are for the Buckhorn Road, Oregon 126 to milepost 1.6 project, and the Three Creeks Road, Sister City Limits to Forest Service boundary projects. So I'll just give a brief overview of those 2 projects. Beginning with the Buckhorn Road,
Question.
Oregon 126 to milepost 1.6 project.
Got a
I'm
question
sorry, was
here.
there?
Sorry to interrupt you, Cody. So Western Federal Lands Highway Division delivery of projects. So who are they? I mean, I don't think the federal government has a bunch of capacity to do work like that. who are they using to do these projects?
Western Federal Lands Highway Division is a division of the Federal Highway Administration. Their sole purpose in life is to deliver both Federal Lands Access Program projects and Federal Lands Transportation Program projects, which are federal funds that are spent for similar projects only on federally owned and operated roads. So their office, which is up in Vancouver, that's their sole mission in life is to deliver these projects. So they have engineering and project delivery staff that deliver these projects.
So they actually mobilize a whole bunch of equipment and come to Deschutes County to build the project?
No. As far as the actual construction, they would administer a construction contract for a private construction contractor to build the project. But as far as designing the project and the administration of the construction contract, Western Federal Lands does that work.
And so the higher costs, would that be because of prevailing wage or something like that, or?
The higher costs have to do with this being a federally funded program, so all the federal strings that are attached to it, the guideline, the rules pertaining to NEPA that have to be, and all the environmental clearances that would have to be obtained just by nature of it being federal funding.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So the distinction I was making is the estimate, the cost estimate you're going to see here are for these projects to be delivered as federal projects, not for these projects to be delivered as your typical road department CIP project.
Got it. Thank you.
So again, our first proposal is for the Buckhorn Road, Oregon 126 to milepost 1.6 project. Buckhorn Road connects Oregon 126 to Lower Bridgeway, out a little ways in between Redmond and Sisters. Buckhorn Road is a collector road and is presently a gravel road. The current traffic on Buckhorn Road is approximately 318 vehicles per day, and we estimate that approximately 72% of that traffic is generated due to federal lands access. Traffic that's actually generated by the federal lands and whatever amenities they have. Some of the specific destinations that Buckhorn Road accesses in terms of federal land use are the Klein Buttes OHV area, the Buckhorn staging area, Bordenbeck Wildlife Preserve, Crooked River National Grassland, the Deschutes River, and various trailheads that are located north of Oregon 126 and even Lower Bridgeway. In this case, the Federal Land Management Agency is the Bureau of Land Management Prineville District. So the proposed project would include improving the 1.6 mile segment of Buckhorn Road that's adjacent to the BLM lands. Once again, improving it from a gravel road, which it currently is, to a 30-foot wide paved road. 30-foot width would accommodate 11-foot travel lanes and 4-foot shoulder bikeways. With that, there'd also be improved right-of-way fencing and improvement to the OHV trail crossings that exist on the road with the BLM trail network that exists there in the Klein Buttes area. This project would be phase one of a two-phase project that the road department currently has in our CIP. The last flap cycle, we actually submitted a proposal for this project for improving the entire length of Buckhorn Road. That proposal was not successful in the program the last go around. So what we've decided to do with this go around is trim our project down to just include the segment of road that is adjacent to the BLM lands, with the intent of possibly delivering the second phase of the project just ourselves with county funds. So the estimated project cost for this proposal is $2.1 million. Roughly, what we're asking for from the flat program is $1,484,000, which is about 70% of the total project estimate. That would leave a proposed county match for the project of $636,000 and some change, which would be 30% of the total project estimate. Any questions on this project?
Cody, so 1.6 miles, is that half of Buckhorn Road to Lower Bridge Road, or is it a third, or
It's
how much is
less
left?
than half. It's a little less than half. The exact mileage I forget off the top of my head. I'm gonna guess it's approximately 2.5 to 3 miles remaining. That's north of that, and again, that remaining segment is the segment that's not adjacent to the federal lands. It includes getting down the hill over the rim there. If you're familiar with Buckhorn Road at all, that's going to require some more substantial improvements. But again, we because of the success or lack thereof that our application for this project as a whole project had the last go around, we thought that trimming this down into a flat project that just addressed the segment of road adjacent to the federal lands our intent is that would be more successful with the program.
Thanks.
Okay, and then our second project proposal is Three Creeks Road, sister city limits to Forest Service boundary. So Three Creeks Road is a collector road that connects the city of Sisters up to various destinations in the Deschutes National Forest. The road's presently a 24-foot wide paved road. Current PCI for that's about 76. It's in fair condition right now. There are some localized areas out there that have some pretty high degree of severity in them. Average daily traffic on Three Creeks Road is 868 vehicles per day. We've determined that approximately 93% of that traffic is all federal lands generated. There's also an existing bridge on the county segment of Three Creeks Road that crosses Three Sisters Irrigation District Canal that has been piped, and there's no longer need for that bridge there. Three Creeks Road, as I said before, provides access to a lot of destinations. Among them is Three Creeks Lake, Three Creeks Snow Park, the Three Sisters Wilderness, the Peterson Ridge Trailhead, Tam MacArthur Rim Trailhead, the upper reaches of Weiches Creek, and various other destinations. And the Federal Land Management Agency, in this case, is the Deschutes National Forest. So the proposed project scope would include paving and widening the county's 3.7 mile segment of Three Creeks Road adjacent to the Forest Service lands to a 30-foot wide paved roadway. So once again, 11-foot travel lanes, 4-foot shoulder bikeways. We have a fairly high number of, we see a lot of bike traffic out on this road. We don't have exact counts for the bike traffic that we're seeing out there. Our department, we just recently got our hands on a vehicle counter that'll allow us to count bicycle traffic, but we haven't had a chance to use it out on Three Creeks Road yet. But just from our observations, generally anytime we're out there, we often see more bikes than we do actual cars driving on the road. So with the project, we'd also be improving the lane and roadside delineation, and then removing that existing canal bridge that's now an obsolete structure on our road and can be removed. So the estimated cost for this project is $2,897,000. Our proposed ask from the flat program is $2,599,000 and some change. That's 89.73% of the total estimate. And the proposed county match for this project would be the minimum match requirement, which is $297,528.56. Any questions on this project?
So I'm just an observation, the county match on this one at the minimum is truly kind of the concept that there's no county connectivity. It's from a city out to the forest, where Buckhorn is a mixed use facility. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great.
Two great projects.
So just in conclusion here for my piece, proposals for the under the current call for project are due Thursday, October 7th. Road Department, we've already obtained signatures from the Deschutes National Forest for the joint endorsement form for our proposal for the Three Creeks Road project. We're currently awaiting signatures from the BLM Prineville District for the joint endorsement form for the Buckhorn Road project, but we will have those here, anticipate within the week. So at this time, the Road Department is requesting Board of County Commissioner support and Board of County Commissioner Chair's signature of the proposal joint endorsement forms for both projects.
Okay, is there any other discussion or questions about this?
The one other thing I would say is that I'm really excited about that Buckhorn Road project because I still have a long-term interest in exploring the county developing a campground down there by Lower Bridge on county property, and this would make it that much. Paving Buckhorn Road would make it that much easier for people to get to that site from other directions. So.
Great.
Yeah. The one other thing that I'd ask about is that Senator Merkley's field rep, their local staffer, asked us if we would like to have if we'd like to ask for a letter of support, and I think that getting a letter of support from one of the members of our congressional delegation could be helpful, and I don't, if we're going to ask for one, we might as well ask for all three, and I can only imagine that getting letters of support from all three of our members of Congress that represent this area could be useful in the competition. But Cody or Chris, if you have a better sense of kind of how the competition process for this works and have any advice for us on whether that's useful or not, I'd love to hear it.
I mean, I think in general, certainly any letters of support we can get from other agencies or certainly from our elected officials is helpful. Chris jumped back on here, so I'll let him maybe speak more to the selection process.
Yeah, absolutely. The more support we can show for a project, the better. Probably what greases the skids the most for flat projects are working with those federal land management agencies. There's a technical advisory group that meets and ranks all the projects. And so these are the subject matter experts with Forest Service, BLM, so on and so forth. And so to the extent that our project and, we get support from their bosses, essentially, I think that would go a long way. But, our work after this will be working with our local reps to make sure they're advocating for these projects amongst all the other projects that they'll be looking at when they sit down and review these over the coming months.
Sounds good. So should I ask for a letter?
So I've initiated that a little bit of that conversation. Sorry, with Merkley's office. They reached out, as you're aware, and I can go ahead and initiate the other three and include you all as necessary to kind of help that flow a little bit better in the limited time that we have left. So thank you for that.
He'll do it.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think these brief write-ups in this staff report would be perfect for explaining the projects to those congressional staffers and getting the process started.
You bet.
Hey,
And I believe we can continue to get letters of support even after the October 7th deadline. So that's something that we probably shouldn't feel we need to rush them on, but it'd be great to have it beforehand if possible.
Great.
So Cody, when will the determinations be made then? Because these, I love both of the projects, and it would surely be nice if we would be awarded. Is it by the end of the year?
Wouldn't be by the end of this calendar year. I think it's going to be early spring next year when their selection committee is going to convene. And the selection committee consists of representatives. There's a county representative, Brian Worley from the Association of Oregon Counties. There's an ODOT representative who's actually Gary Farnsworth, our local region manager. And then there's representatives from different land management agencies, the BLM, Forest Service, National Park Service, a few others, who are all together on the selection committee. So they I think in the spring, they're actually going to do their road trip to actually visit the project sites, or at least some of the select proposed project sites. And I don't know if we have a set date as far as when they're going to make their actual project decisions, but I would anticipate we're probably not going to hear about it until next summer at the soonest.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll move approval of chair signature and road department submittal of flap applications for the Buckhorn Road, Oregon 126 to milepost 1.6, and Three Creeks Road, sister city limits to Forest Service boundary projects.
And I'll second the motion.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes?
Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. Okay, there's two projects. Let's hear about some more. The next agenda item is ODOT flap projects.
Thank you, Board. Again, for the record, Chris Doty, Road Department Director. So Cody just walked you through the two best projects
Yep.
in the flat program. Should be easy slam dunks, right? Now we're going to hear about a couple more that ODOT is submitting within Deschutes County. And there's other projects also being submitted by other agencies as well, and I can kind of briefly mention those here at the end. But in your packet, Board, you have two projects that ODOT has put some effort into preparing applications for. The first one is the Bend Lava Trailhead Improvement Project. This consists of a parking lot, trailhead, and then an undercrossing of Knott Road for the project that was previously awarded flap funds, consisting of the trail from basically Knott Road through High Desert Museum area, and then eventually serving the Lava Lands area as its federal land connection point. So this project would be a $3.5 million project. ODOT is proposing a 10.27%, so the minimum match associated with that. The second project is US 97 Century Drive to the US Forest Service boundary. This would extend the multi-lane section of US 97 that's currently under construction and terminating just south of Vanderbilt Road. This would extend this several miles, 3 miles further to the south to the Forest Service boundary and kind of complete that project in all of its phases. It includes two wildlife undercrossings in addition to the multi-lane road section. This is a $15 million project and a 10.27% match. And it's very customary for ODOT to, again, try to gain support from community leaders. And so that's what they've asked the board to do, is sign a letter of support that they can attach to their application for these two projects. As Cody mentioned, this is a $70 million statewide pool. That's 2 years at $35 million each. So it's a pretty big pool of funding. ODOT's asking for a big chunk of it right here with these two projects. And so we will be competing with them, but competing in a way that hopefully allows for all the projects to be considered and funded, hopefully. Several other projects that we've heard about just kind of through the grapevine here recently. CET, Cascade East Transit, they were previously awarded flap funds to provide transit service into the Cascade Lakes trailhead areas and up Century Drive. And I don't know that particular flap project has been implemented yet. I think that's coming online here in the next year or so. However, this is another flap opportunity for them to extend that funding that was previously provided. They'll be submitting an application. They're not asking for anything from us. That's just another project that I'm aware of. And also ODOT is kind of at the 11th hour-ish putting together another application for portions of the Deschutes County Intelligent Transportation System plan that involve variable message signage that would be installed in Bend, on Century Drive, and then up at the mountain to provide traveler information, especially those folks heading up for in winter conditions to Mount Bachelor. It's helpful to have information down low before you get high. And as a part of that project as well, a similar piece of infrastructure would be installed on Spring River Road, just out of Sun River, our road, and then also up at River Summit near the intersection with Century. They'll provide that same traveler information. Again, that's very useful to convey at down low before folks get all the way to Mount Bachelor and beyond and find that conditions are such that they're not great for travel. So those are other projects that are in the mix. But what we're asking for, what ODOT's asking for here today, Board, is just a signature on the letter that's attached in your packet endorsing their two primary projects.
Chris, I thought I was hearing about another project along Century Drive, down close into Bend as well. Is that? I thought I heard about that at the MPO or somewhere. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I believe there's a project that perhaps even the city is coupling to and maybe Bend Parks provide trail connectivity. I just heard rumblings of that myself, so I don't know the exact details. And it might even be attached to this other project that with variable message signs. I'm not sure. We didn't get that information in time to review it and submit it with this packet. But FLAP's become a very popular program because it's very well funded for Oregon. The rules are such that you used to have to be a specific type of facility to get this funding, federal forest highway. But now it's really anything that could provide access to federal lands. And so it is reaching down into cities and organizations that normally wouldn't be an applicant, find themselves potentially being an applicant. And again, because it's robustly funded, it's attracting a lot of unique applications.
Do you have my impression is that our region is very successful with this program. And so could you confirm that? And then kind of to give us, I mean, $35.7 million annually is a lot of money, but it seems like we're getting close to asking for all of it just from within Deschutes County with the projects that we were just talking about. I mean, do you have a sense of how many projects could potentially be successful?
Typically, I believe statewide, it's 18 to 20 projects, but probably at a fraction of that funding. And so I would expect, I wouldn't be surprised if, upwards of 30 plus projects are considered for the funding that's available in this go around. $70 million is I'm guessing a record for FLAP. We've been successful as an agency. Skylanders Road was constructed, almost entirely with FLAP funds, over $8 million there. Annually, I can't remember a FLAP cycle where we haven't been successful. Within the past several, we've done a lot of chip seal work. George Milliken Road, Paulina Lake Road, South Century, Cascade Lakes Highway, and various segments have all been FLAP projects for chip seal. We did a bike study for Cascade Lakes Highway with FLAP funds, and ODOT has been very successful with some of their work here locally. The trail that we talked about has been approved twice for funding for study and then also for construction. Portion of the Vandevert work that's under construction now associated with that multi-lane highway project is FLAP funds. And there have been other projects I think ODOT has been successful in as well. So we have 80% federal lands in this county, and I think we make good projects, good candidate projects for this program.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so we're are we supportive of writing a letter of support for ODOT for these flap projects?
Commissioners, can I ask, I'm just curious if ODOT submitted a letter of support for our project?
Ha ha!
Chris or Cody, do we
I
have a
was-
letter of support from ODOT for our projects?
Our support from ODOT will come when we do some serious arm twisting. Cody mentioned Gary Farnsworth is a part of that project development committee. He's one of the top 3 selectors in that process. I don't think as a state agency, ODOT submits, endorses projects per se, but they certainly, can be, our partnership certainly can be leveraged with them when those projects are selected, and will be.
Okay.
Okay, well,
What I was going to say is an endorsement from the Board of Commissioners goes a long ways. An endorsement from ODOT doesn't really mean anything.
Okay.
well, so these are for the people in our community. These are, Deschutes County traveled roads anyway, so I'm supportive of getting the word out and acknowledging these projects.
They're great road projects and road and trail projects, regardless. Do we need a motion or just yes or?
So this is a letter of support for chair signature. It's attached to the last page.
How about I move approval of board chair signature on the letter of support on behalf of ODOT's 2 flat projects.
And I second the motion.
Okay, so one other question, and I just can't help it, but was the South Century U.S. Forest Service boundary project, the 97 dual lane project, was that always planned as a 2-phase project, or it just ended up having to be that way because of the dynamic world we live in? And as I say, that's more of a question for ODOT, but do you know that, Chris or Cody?
I believe it. They were hopeful for a build grant at one point that would have ensured a 1-phase project, but had to break it in half when they were unsuccessful, I believe, in that effort. So they've been building what they've been able to build through resources that they've been able to acquire, and now they're going this route for the last bit of it.
Okay, so they always knew the full distance of the project. It's always been a function of funding.
Correct. Yeah, it's always intended to go to the Forest Service boundary, and they just had to phase it based on available funds.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussions? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes also. Thank you.
Commissioners, just one other point on that before Chris and Cody leave also. Chris mentioned that CET may or may not be submitting an application for the bus service to the trailheads out on Cascade Lakes Highway. Whitney Hale was contacted this week by COIC asking if the commissioners might consider a letter of support for, and it's not clear to me whether it's that project or maybe the shuttle to Mount Bachelor, but if you are willing to consider that, we could bring it back on Wednesday, but I know Whitney's on the line and she can probably fill in what I missed with that if you have a minute.
Also, just learn about the specific project, I guess, is the first step.
Yeah. Whitney, do you want to give us a little bit more specifics right now?
Yeah, it sounds like this application is to support Route 18, which is the route that CET runs up to Mount Bachelor and the surrounding areas in the winter. And so the letter of support that they've prepared for partners speaks to the fact that they're the only public transit agency that can connect folks up to that area, and asks for continuing LAP support to be able to run that route. So I'm happy to share this with the board, but that's it in a nutshell.
I think we've seen that as a successful transportation option up to Mount Bachelor. COVID's really probably changed the dynamics of that just because of public transportation. But yeah, I mean, in the future, hopefully it can be very successful again, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hope by this summer, by this winter that, well, actually, these proposals are for
Couple years
they won't be
before that.
decided until next summer, and, well, definitely by winter 22, 23, hopefully people will be able to ride the bus to Bachelor in the winter without having to worry about infectious disease in the bus air. And
Good old-fashioned cold.
yeah, and the Cascade Lakes Highway is horrible during the winter. So anything to get a few more cars off the road and consolidate a little bit sounds great to me.
So for a project like that, we support just having it come up on Wednesday or at the end of the day today. I mean, are you ready, Whitney? Is there a letter prepared? Or?
We have a letter prepared on letterhead for your review, so if you'd like, I could bring that down later today and share it.
Yep, yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So I do have a 2:00 call today. It's a county chairs with the governor call. That's how our agenda is working here. So there's a recess at 2:00. So yeah, let's do that after that recess. Okay, so next item, how to apply funds received in repayment of small business assistance loans. So Greg Munn is going to join us. Well, I'll be, stepping out for a Zoom call.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. Greg Munn, County Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer. On the line with me from COIC is Pat Germick, and he might have something to say here as we go through this next agenda item. So the purpose of this next agenda item is to consider how to apply funds received in repayment for small business assistance loans. And just in terms of background, the board met back in February to consider how to address early repayment of some business assistance funds that we received that were made with CARES Act dollars through COIC. The document I just gave you is referenced in this staff report, but it wasn't attached like it said it was attached, so I'm handing it to you physically. So that was the original staff report back from February. So at that time, the board decided to leave the funds with COIC for the time being and revisit the question at a later time when it was known whether additional state or federal funds would be received for the purpose of business assistance. The board also asked for recommendation from COIC. At the time of this staff report, there's been no additional state or federal funding received by the county or approved by the board for the purpose of making business assistance loans. A recommendation from COIC is included as an attachment to the staff report. And just in terms of background, as was discussed at the February 2nd, 21 board meeting, there are three options to consider. One was to grant the funds to COIC to manage as an ongoing revolving loan fund to support the economic development in the county. And would formally grant those CARES Act funds to COIC to do such. This is staff's recommendation. The second option is to return those funds to the county to be repurposed at board discretion. This would require the county to set up and manage an ongoing revolving loan fund or grant funds per the requirements of the CARES Act. And the third option would be to forgive the loans and convert those agreements to grants. So you also have a recommendation from, a letter from COIC with their recommendation. Staff's recommendation is to approve granting these previously contributed CARES Act funds plus any accrued interest to COIC for the establishment of a sustainable and revolving small business assistance loan program in the county. So there's the letter there, and Pat is on the line if you have any questions.
Great. So a couple choices in front of us here with the recommendation for option number one. So one question I would have, and Patrick may be able to help, is there a repayment schedule that's implemented at this time for the existing loans?
Yes, they are. The loans were set up for a 5-year program payback, and all the borrowers are current, and they were very happy to get their loans, and things are going pretty smoothly at this point.
Yeah, so nothing's really in panic mode for either party at this point in time. It's kind of what I was trying to understand. That's great.
So that 5-year term, are they required to make any interim payments, or just, at the end of 5 years, pay back this amount?
Thank you. The program started off with they deferred their payments for 6 months. And then we started interest-only payments for the additional 6 months. And then basically in June this year, they went on an amortization schedule. Most of the loans are about $10,000. After year number 4, there is a balloon for whatever's left.
Okay.
Total term of 5 years.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Patrick, we only had one business that actually paid it all in full, correct?
Yes, we did, and they were very happy. And as if I can remember, they also received some grant funds at the time too. And she was just ecstatic how everything was kind of happening. So that was very good.
Good. So I think doing what the staff recommends is important, but I clearly would like it to somehow be labeled Deschutes County Loan Fund on the COIC books, if that's possible, some kind of wording so that they know where these funds originated from.
Okay, and this is in directly as we have correspondence with the borrowers, basically. Yes, yeah, not easy to do. Thank you.
Okay, that's it's $73,000, and it's great to know that everyone is timely with their payments. I know we wanted to help as many people as we could. Things were every day was a new change, and really hard for businesses to know what to do when things keep changing. So, but I would make the motion, unless, I don't know, if maybe it's too early, but I would make the motion to grant the funds to COIC to manage as an ongoing Deschutes County revolving loan fund to support economic development in Deschutes County.
I'll second.
Okay, and I'm very good. So there's been a motion and a second. I'm supportive of this also. COIC does have a long history of managing some loan funds, so it's a good place to be able to do that. And I like your idea, Commissioner Dare, just acknowledging this are Deschutes County efforts. So any other discussions?
Nope.
Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Thank you. At this time, we'll take a recess until 2:30. And as I say, there'll be a update possibly from the discussions I'm going to be involved in a moment.
Your day.
Okay, welcome back. This is our Board of Commissioners meeting after a recess on the 27th of September. So we can go to other items kind of at the end of this for, well, do you want to hear about what we just talked about? So with the governor's office, basically it's just committing, it's time for vaccines. You know, there was 36 county chairs or judges on the call. Couple just statements about the hospital capacity, the healthcare workers coming from out of the state, the National Guard helping real well right now, making sure the hospital capacity is there, frustration that other items aren't being dealt with because of COVID patients. The governor mentioned just keep the push on for vaccines. I'm just saying that was the message of the day just now at the joint meeting with the governor. There's, you know, some differences of opinion, different county leadership, but it boils down to that, keeping the push on for vaccines. Yeah, so I think that's all the notes I have from that meeting just now. Okay, so at this time, item number 6, Treasurer and Finance Report.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. Greg Munn, County Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer. So this staff report is the monthly Treasury and Finance Report for August 2021. These are actuals through the end of August, August 31st, 2021. So this should be a fairly brief report because of the newness of the fiscal year. We're 2 years in, so I'll just hit the high points along the way here. So the first page is a summary of our Treasury portfolio, and right now at the end of August we have a balance in the portfolio of almost $235 million. This is slightly down from last month, about $2 million down, and that's all things being the same. We would normally expect that just for monthly operating costs of the county. So, but it's year-to-date we're up $43 million, and that has to do with a combination of growth and ARPA funds that we received in May, that $19 million. On the investment income side, we, in earnings for the month, net earnings $131,000. This is $14,000 less than last month, and $227,000, some substantial number less than the same month last year, August of 2020. Year-to-date, with only 2 months in, we've the portfolio has earned $275,000, but that's $463,000 less than year-to-date last year. Pretty significant difference. All of our investments are within the category maximums. I would note that at the end of August each year, the local government investment pool, which is managed by the state treasury, increases the maximum amount allowable in that pool, and so that was just increased to $52,713,000 at the end of August. Yield percentages, there was no change in our pool rate. It stayed at 50.55%, 55 basis points. Overall, the average return on the portfolio declined from 71 basis points to 69 basis points. In terms of benchmarks, you'll notice that the 24-month Treasury benchmark there is 20 basis points. Last month, it was 19 basis points, so slightly up. The 36-month Treasuries at 40 basis points. Last month, it was at 35 basis points. Flipping the page, the graphics there, I don't have a lot to say there other than we're following just normal trends from the past. I think I've mentioned this before, but on that middle graph, you'll notice portfolio balance over time. It mirrors each year. We have an increase in the November timeframe, and then we utilize those funds down for county operations, and then there's another increase in November. If you find May 2021, it's the fourth item from the right on that 1 3-year portfolio balance graph, and track that up, you'll notice a spike up, which you don't see in the other 2 years. Though that's the receipt of the ARPA funds. Any questions on Treasury side? We did have our investment advisory committee meeting today. I would note that. Commissioner Chang was on board and Nick Lilac was on board as well. So that was successful. So the results of that will come back to the full board after the first of the year. So on the next page, just a couple of updates in finance. Some of this has been communicated, but I thought I'd just put it all down in the fiscal report to put it all in one spot. So underneath the American Rescue Plan Act, when we say ARPA, we sometimes generalize that to our $38 million. And in theory, the correct term is it's under the state and local fiscal recovery funds. It's just the SLFRF doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well as ARPA, so we have a tendency just to use ARPA. And there's a reason I'm telling you that, and I'll get to that in a second. So just a couple of updates. The next update for ARPA is this Wednesday, and at the Wednesday meeting, we'll ask the board for formal approval of the $82,000 expenditure for the mobile morgue that was verbally approved a couple of weeks ago. And also, we will provide an update on the Small Business Assistance Project, and we've teamed up with not only the chambers, but with COIC, and we'll have a proposal for the board to move forward with a proposal to eventually grant those funds out to those small businesses and nonprofits in the community that have still have a financial net negative impact from COVID. Then on October 13th, we'll have the Child Care Expansion Committee meet with the board. And the goal there is to come up with identification of some short-term actions that could increase slots immediately and longer-term activities to ramp up slot numbers over time. There'll be a proposal for the board's consideration on the 13th for that. And then we'll also be involved on the 13th with the joint City of Sisters board meeting. So the reason why I mentioned at the beginning the state-local fiscal recovery funds is because another component of ARPA is local assistance funds, and we haven't talked about that a lot, but it's a $1.5 billion that's being allocated out to natural resource counties. And we have an early estimate on what we think that might be in fiscal 22 and 23, and we're estimating that to be a little over $4 million for each of those 2 years. So somewhere between $4 and $4.5 million, or $8 and $8.5 million total over that 2-year period. So just an early heads up on that, and there'll be more information to follow. And then the last piece here was just the Biomass Project, and as you recall, they were here and made a presentation to the board. And since then, we've met with them, and they are working with other funding partners, including the Forest Service, and they expect to know more about these funding option commitments later this fall. And then once they get to that point, they would like to come back and ask for consideration of the county's participation in that project. On the next page is the position control summary. We had you can see that the unfilled percent is about the same as it was last month. Total staffing has increased since the prior month. We had the addition of 2 in health services that was approved by the board, 2 in community development, that was at the end of August, and 3 landfill site attendants on August 25th as well. And then briefly onto the financials. You turn to the TRT Fund 160-170. I have something I want to mention there. I don't have page numbers, but the header is TRT Fund 160/170.
73.
73? Okay, thank you. So you'll note that we have a budget of $11.6 million in room tax collections for fiscal 22. This projection was based on a 10% increase on where we were last year. We thought that was a reasonable estimate moving forward. We're 2 months in so far. We haven't adjusted our projection for the end of the year, but so far we're 2 months in and we're 38% above collections from last summer, for July and August. So just to note that we'll be looking at that again and adjusting that projection moving forward. And I think I'm moving to the Fair Fund, which is County Fair Fund 616.
Page 88.
88, thank you.
That was my question, Greg. Has the state not given us that grant funding of the 53,000? It's showing up still in the projection, but we haven't received that funding?
Commissioner, which, right, what are we looking at?
Fund 616 resources in the middle.
It's actually on page 89. I was just wondering, it looks like it's still, we haven't gotten it actually. It's showing up, you know.
So we do receive that every year. We received, in fiscal 21, we received 53,167. We just haven't received it yet for fiscal 22. We still have a budget of 52,000, but we haven't received it yet.
Okay.
So the news here is, as you're all aware, because we've talked about it a few times, but the 616, the Fair Fund, is doing very well, whereas the last year, it's been a real struggle, last couple of years, but it's doing very well this year. So whether you look at it on a fiscal year basis or on a fair year basis, if you do look at a fair year basis, if you notice that the projection for 2021 is a net margin of about $394,000. So you can see how that compares to the fair of 2020, which wasn't a fair, but there still were some costs incurred of a loss of $48,000. So our 10-year average for the fair in terms of margin is $275,000, and our best year so far, over the last 10 years, was 2016 at $450,000. So we're in a good spot there. And that's some good news, I think, especially after dealing with the challenges with the fair in the last year. So they've really come back real well, especially for putting the fair together at the last minute like they did. And I believe that's all the comments I have. Are there any questions for me?
So is that? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just want to note for the record that the transfer station is solid waste is still, it's up 19% and it's 16.7% year to date. So that's indicative that we're still having a lot of things happening in Deschutes County.
Maybe this could just wait until Wednesday, but you mentioned the mobile morgue $82,000 discussion. I heard somewhere else that the state might be considering stepping in to support that. Do we know whether that's a real option at this point, or should we still be preparing on Wednesday to make that decision?
I think that was an early option before there was a commitment to use ARPA funds. So I think at this point, I heard the same thing as well. At this point, the next logical step would be to go ahead and approve that. And then we can address the asset transfer with St. Charles.
Okay, thank you.
So my understanding is that the state office, Sean Hurst, whatever office he was from, they offered to do a lease. They could reimburse leases, but not purchases, is what I heard. So, and I think that's what the story was. So there was money available, but not for purchase. It was only a monthly lease. So then, since we purchased, it's a kind of one-way street. So that's what I heard. I had one more note, community development. Now I can't even figure out what page it's on. just keep going back and forth through my paperwork here. But it was just kind of something for my information as I was looking at it and pondering it, the concept of income is from just a couple, the
81.
yeah, okay, thank you. Why am I not seeing my, oh, here we are, okay. Here's my little ticks. Income is from permits, so I think of electrical, plumbing, structural permits. So like building safety is a $4 million income. Current planning, $2 million income. So this is just kind of high-level questions. Maybe it's even for our previous community development director. But and then the expenses, the way that building safety and current planning and admin and operations, how the money is spent. So it's really just permits. And then how does current planning and long-range planning get funded, I guess, is, when I read these line items, it kind of wasn't real clear to me about how the income and expenses. Can you help me with a little bit with that, Nick?
Sure, Commissioner. Current planning is primarily funded by permit fees. Long-range planning is funded by grants and general fund on occasion. The other key is that there is an administrative service fee on building permits that then fund the public information counter for current planning and an advanced planning fee for long-range planning.
So then so when there's an income of, for current planning, just a line item, $2 million or so the number is, that is a line item on the bill for a permit also. Correct. Is that correct?
Correct, on a building permit fee, yes.
That was kind of what I was just getting clarity on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a percentage of a fee, it's a line item on the bills for the fees. So,
Yeah,
I haven't seen that. We had a house built, and I'm sure there's lots of permits that were pulled, but I just never looked at the detail from the consumer side is what I was thinking,
That's correct. And, for example, the advanced planning fee, which is long-range planning, for permits that we collect in the cities of Sisters and Lapine, we provide that long-range planning fee back to those cities so that they're continuously planning for their future growth and can accommodate their the next wave of housing, businesses, et cetera.
Yep. Yeah, just some clarity on how the money flows. So, thank you. That's all I had. If there's nothing else, next item is discussion of increasing FTE in health services for behavioral health. Item number 7. So this is just for discussion for our acknowledgement and understanding.
Hi, Commissioners. Good to be with you today. Holly Harris, Program Manager, Behavioral Health. And I have with me Molly Wells-Darling, also Program Manager, who will be speaking to her item. So we're here today for a discussion on increasing FTE related to Health Services Fund for Behavioral Health. My portion for the crisis program is related to our weekend day shift employees. We had originally had those be 0.6 FTE, 2 of them, to do our Saturday and Sunday weekend shifts at the Stabilization Center. And we are requesting or discussing today the possibility of increasing one of those to a full-time FTE to help both with retention and recruitment for that position. We have a 0.6 that's been vacant for some time and it's not really receiving any applicants. Pre-COVID staffing crisis, our 0.6 FTE worked really well because they would want to pick up extra shifts on occasion to provide coverage. So we'd like to keep one of them as is for right now, unless we discover over time that that's not feasible anymore and we have the funds to change that. But for now, we'd like to move one of them to model after what we've done with our night shift employees, which is the 3/12 work schedule. That's been really great for night shift. It's actually helped retain those staff. They've been very happy with that, and it's also provided us some additional coverage, which has been really helpful for our operations. So we'd like to model that and apply that to one of our weekend day shift operations. We have funds for this through our impacts grant. As you can imagine, we have some vacancy savings accumulating throughout this time that is helping us be able to pay for some of these changes. And of course, we'll always be looking at this long-term as to what makes the most sense for a staffing model, but we continue to learn every single day. So that is the request for the Behavioral Health Specialist 2 within the crisis program. So I'm happy to field any questions you might have about that.
Holly, it sounds like a good idea in order to fill that one of those positions. So just adding 0.4, 3, 12s. I mean, and then that is considered a full-time employee with Deschutes County. They get full benefits, etc.
Correct. They do. And it's a really, and it allows just, there's that extra 4 hours in there that, oftentimes these staff are having to work beyond their typical schedule and attend trainings and meetings and so forth. So the county benefits from it as well in terms of the flexibility it allows for.
Well, filling those positions, I know is incredibly difficult at this time. So if this, I would think this perhaps could be a big help.
It is, and I know it's working on our night shift, which are even more difficult to fill. We've actually received some applications since some of the changes we've made. So I'm actually feeling really optimistic and hopeful about our future with that. But I noticed that some of these changes we've implemented and that you all have supported are actually paying off. So thank you for that.
Good. Thank you. Thanks for always thinking out of the box. How do we get these positions filled? So,
well, thank you. It's definitely stretched me creatively. So but I'm happy to see that a lot of it's working. So if there are no other questions for me, I'll pass it to Molly Wells-Darling to talk about her part.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Molly Wells-Darling, Program Manager for Health Services, and I'm here to discuss converting a 1.0 FTE that was originally requested as a peer specialist to a behavioral health specialist 1. Originally, the purpose of this position was to work with our access team to improve client engagement for those clients that are coming into services. But as the access team took a look at that position, it really made sense to change it to a behavioral health 1 specialist, which is like a case manager. Because that position can then really work on outreach, identifying and addressing barriers to treatment, and then providing linkages to resources needed to help someone get into treatment, to help them get onto Oregon Health Plan, et cetera. And also, with this being a behavioral health specialist 1, this position can actually bring in about $20,000 more in revenue than a peer would through the billings that they can provide for. This position is mostly paid for out of our BHC PPS payments and behavioral health reserves. And actually, there'll be a savings this year with this position as well because of the late start with getting this hired. That is the overall of this position. I'm open for questions if you have any questions.
So both of these positions, it's good to be able to dial in the needs and the expectations, getting the positions filled. One of the things I start to see is that, health services just growing leaps and bounds in all directions. So my thought is really understanding the, FTE per population for the services, general fund, so this is just annual budget thoughts is what I'm sharing right now. But, there's just a lot of parts and pieces to this, and every time we meet, every week or two, we're adding a few people for some reason. So it's just kind of it's feeling like we're out in a little bit of uncharted territory for me. So I just wanted to share that. So this is preparation for a budget cycle is what I'm referring to. Both of these choices seem prudent at this time, but yeah, as I say, this thing called health services just I want to understand more as it evolves. So. And this is just for information today. This will be a agenda. Is it on our agenda for Wednesday already? Is that where we're at? Do we know? I guess the consent.
That's my understanding.
I believe so.
Yeah. So we'll see it as a item for Wednesday's board meeting on the consent or action, whichever it is. Any other questions or thoughts?
These sound like good changes to help us provide services. Thank you.
Well, and thanks for doing this with us. I mean, it's good to take a moment and understand what we're doing and why, because these could be, a little bit less focus on each one of these choices, but it's good to see the choices, each individually piece as it's growing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Item number 9, House Bill 3295, marijuana tax revenue, Cannabis Advisory Panel decisions. So, thanks for joining us.
You skipped one.
Oh, did I?
We have 8.
Maintenance, okay, yep, thank you very much. Item number 8, reallocation of existing facilities department FTE from maintenance specialist 2 to maintenance specialist 3. So I think I saw the word FTE in there, so I just jumped to the next item. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, Commissioners, for the record, Lee Randall, Facilities Director, and
for the record, Brian Hayward, Maintenance Supervisor.
So, what we have before you today is a request to reallocate a vacant Maintenance Specialist 2 position to a Maintenance Specialist 3 position that would specialize in HVAC service. Just to give a little bit of background, we had, up until 2019, we had 2 HVAC specialist positions, and we had, at that time, reduced that to 1 position that was focused on HVAC repair and maintenance, and then kind of went to a blended approach in utilizing contractors a little bit more. With the growth we've experienced since then and looking forward into the future, for several reasons, we're here requesting that we convert a vacant Specialist 2 position to 3, and then we can go out and hire that position. I noted in the agenda request a few of those reasons, but they include some of the square footage we've added, some of the anticipated square footage coming up. When we have a project underway, it requires additional work especially from our electrical and HVAC team when it comes to reviewing plans and working on integrating, say, a remodel project into the existing building. So that all adds some additional work. And so, and then additionally for staff redundancy. So currently having 1 person in that position that can respond to weekend on-calls, after hours, as well as when they're gone on vacation, having a second position will help cover that work. So that's really the request that we have before you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? So I know we are adding a couple buildings. We've got quite a bit of maintenance, and then also knowing that we have had this capacity need in the past, and that we are, as I mentioned, growing our facilities. Really good idea to be able to have the 2 folks to be able to bounce off each other, especially during off hours or weekends would be very valuable.
So Lee, you hope you'll be able to get this position filled maybe by November or something? I know with winter coming, I can imagine that we clearly could use someone additional in this department.
Yes, with the board's support, we would move forward as soon as we could on filling the position. And this is kind of, fall and spring are kind of slower times, fortunately, for HVAC, and then as we move into winter, we know
The first real cold snap, all of a sudden you find out if things are working or not.
So, and I think this request would be for county administrator's signature, but at this time we're seeking the board's support.
So this will be
it would have to come back for a budget adjustment also to authorize HR to plug in the higher grade position.
So this would be a managed motion to show support to move this whole thing forward.
Similar to last item, Commissioners, it'll come back in a likely a consent agenda resolution to affect the change.
So we don't need to make a motion right now?
You certainly can, but again, it's similar to the last one, which you express support in your conversation. If you have the same kind of support, that would be fine to bring it back.
Great.
I'm supportive of this change.
I think sooner than later, especially if we have a winter like we had summer in June, it would be good to fill this position. So thank you, Lee, for coming to us with this.
I'm supportive also. So yeah, there's definitely support for that. So thank you very much. Sorry, I almost missed your agenda item. You're in the room and I'm skipping right over you. But yeah, good to see you and thanks for what you do out there.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 9, House Bill 3295, marijuana tax revenue, Cannabis Advisory Panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I wanted to just briefly note that I had to bring out the Cal Bear tie. I was hoping that today I would be able, with one of our county administrators' last meeting, be able to acknowledge a victory in Seattle. I was in the Steens over the weekend and understand that Cal fumbled on the tying possession on the goal line, but I truly was hoping I could wear this tie in front of Nick Lelak and Tom Anderson when Berkeley won the
Big day for you.
when Cal won the Pac-10, but that's not going to happen this year. But I want everyone to know that the tie is here for when that event happens. So Tom just needed to see it once over the. I've known Tom since 2004. I never donned it until today. I thought I would take that opportunity, even though it's really just a tie, nothing to. I don't have any leg to stand on. Anyway, sorry for that distraction. So today is an opportunity to discuss appointing members to a cannabis advisory panel. It's an opportunity for the board to review the draft charter and select a meeting date for the cannabis advisory panel. I do want to recognize that one of our attendees in person today is an applicant for the Cannabis Advisory Panel. It's Liz Ludachensky, who is spending her afternoon with us, so thank you for attending. Ms. Ludachensky was a member of the Marijuana Advisory Committee that was formed to provide guidance to the Board of County Commissioners for time, place, and manner regulations for the marijuana industry. My goal, if possible, Commissioners, would be to have you go through Table 1 and identify those representatives who you believe should be considered for the Cannabis Advisory Panel, receive some direction, and then on Wednesday, under other items, I could bring back an updated order, which is an attachment 2. I don't know why that says attachment 2. It should say attachment 1. Well, anyway, it's attachment 2. You already have the candidate applications, which was provided under separate cover. Attachment 2 is the order. I could bring that back under other items for you to formally consider it on Wednesday, as well as what is attachment 3 is the Cannabis Advisory Panel Charter. We're getting to the point where we need to confirm a meeting date as well. As noted in the memorandum, staff did reach out per the board's direction to Representatives Zika and Croft, who were instrumental in establishing House Bill 3295. Last I reached out to them, which was several weeks ago, I had them hold the date for the week of October 18th. So would like to, if possible, alert them to the date and time for that initial meeting. And of course, we need to let the Cannabis Advisory Panel members block out that date as well. So I'll pause there and entertain whatever options the board believes is appropriate today. We can, if it's appropriate, we could start with Table 1, but Mr. Chairman, I don't want to get ahead of myself.
So my thought is, let's kind of set the tone, set the direction of this as a board. Welcome members of the committee to join us, and go from there. So we'll work through as much as we can today, because this will be a work in progress. Any other comments? Just on the big picture of what we're doing here.
I guess one to frame the discussion of who's going to take the kind of member of the public at large position. There were a number of people who applied who had unique things to offer to this position, and because we didn't really we didn't say we're really specifically looking for this. I feel like a little bit like we're having we face an apples to oranges comparison at this point. There's a lot of people who have various things to offer, background in tax and law, background in, community justice and how to, kind of keep youth on track who've gotten off track, and, background in prior efforts on the earlier Cannabis Advisory Committee or the earlier Marijuana Advisory Committee. So we can dive into it, but I'm when we get to the point where we're asking, well, which of these potential applicants we want to serve, I'm actually going to I'd like us to seriously consider a number of the people who submitted applications.
Any thoughts, Commissioner Dare?
Thank you so much, Liz, for being there today. And clearly, I would appreciate Liz being part of this member of the public, and her attendance today, I think, shows her clear indication that she would appreciate that. And I believe Mary Fleshman is the person you were referring to, and what she has to offer, I think, is maybe the other side of this panel. And it appears that she could add a lot to this group. So those are two people that I was thinking I would love to see on the group.
So, that position, a member of the public, can be a discussion item, obviously, for all of us today. Is the definition of the committee, the committee makeup in statute, or is it kind of up to us, or at least a minimal committee makeup?
Great question, Mr. Chairman. I guess it is under statute now with the legislation. It does acknowledge the representation that's noted in Table 1, but the board is not limited to those 7 members. You have discretion to add to it as you see fit. So this is just really a starting point to make us consistent with the legislation.
So that's my thought. Let's work our way up to whatever the board's comfortable with in appointing people. And we'll put a couple of these names are pretty straightforward. The who they represent, the representation, and then we'll go from there. So do we want to start working through this table and see how close we are just getting this kind of finalized? So would we say that any of these names are finalized? Or I guess they're all, board selections are open for all these. So nothing's finalized. So I'm just going to go through Table 1 and go step down from the first one and down. So Hunter Neubauer, he was involved in the Marijuana Advisory Committee also, wasn't he? He was there originally. So that was our Deschutes County Advisory Committee. He is a business owner here in town, as I say. So I know him, and I've crossed paths with him many times on this subject. Is there support for that appointment? And this is a person who holds a license, as defined by the state. So this is for the 3 of us to just nod yes or no. So I'm supportive.
I would be supportive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just making sure. Okay. So we've appointed our first person to the Marijuana Advisory Committee.
I mean, I would also I would be supportive, but I'd also ask the question. You mentioned that Hunter Neubauer had previously served on the Marijuana Advisory Committee back in 2016, 2017. I am, as we look at this advisory panel, I definitely am concerned about how much this might be viewed as a continuation of the previous committee. My understanding is that prior committee really focused a lot on time, place, and manner questions, And I think looking forward towards this this panel serving, I really would like to not see this panel get very bogged down in those issues, because I feel like they have been resolved to a large degree. I mean, the voters have spoken, the committee did its prior work. We've gotten a lot of legal opinions back on, what our, what time and place and manner should look like. So some of the other functions of this cannabis advisory panel, as set out by the legislation, I think are higher priorities than this panel working on time, place, and manner issues moving forward.
So this is a legislatively defined committee. We're placing members of our community on the committee for the tax revenue distribution, and it's a recommendation that comes out of this committee to the county, to the Board of Commissioners, to the budget process. My thought is, and this is how I started, remember, was setting the culture or the expectation of this committee. So on one hand, I agree with you, but on the other hand, this is the committee that anybody in the community can put stuff out on the table. It's like, okay, fine, the revenue's this, but this is still an issue. So it's going to be interesting. Would we be in a spot where we're going to ask people not to talk about topics of the day or something that's brought up?
No, I mean, not that we would stifle conversation. I just want it to be clear that the job of this committee is not to relitigate time, place, and manner.
It's been said. So then also, that first meeting, so now we're jumping around a little bit, but that first meeting, the date set with our state representatives to be able to say how we got here, why we think we're here, and really setting the tone of the meeting. I think that's going to be a state rep opportunity, they don't, but that's the invitation. So we'll get back to the table, but for our state reps, did they say they were available on those 3 dates, or?
Mr. Chairman, yes, the emails were from several weeks ago, but they expressed their availability during that week. And so I worked with with Sharon Keith and your calendars, and this was easily a month ago. Feels like a month ago, and had them hold the date.
And there's a placeholder on all of our calendars for those 3 days.
And if I may, I think in light of the conversation about the Marijuana Advisory Committee and this role, I'd also remind you that there is a charter as well that is a draft that also expresses the intent and purpose behind this Cannabis Advisory Panel. So again, of course, other issues can certainly be discussed, but that charter was deliberately constructed to provide clear expectations about what its purpose is going forward.
And another way to do this is, if there's a convening of this group, state representatives talk about how we got here, why we got here. We have the history of where we're, why we're here, why this group is brought together. As soon as an issue comes up that looks like it's outside the charter, it just gets put, on a list of items that came up during this meeting that aren't in the domain of the decision space, because that's fine. And it was like that this whole time, this came on. There was not a lot of common ground. There's a lot of passion on the subject. And if there's still issues that come up, let's document them. Okay. So let's get back to item number 2, or position number 2, person who holds a license issued under ORS for premises located in the county. So this is rural retail. We happen to have two authorized businesses, and both people have offered to participate. I don't have, any, other than flipping a coin or putting them both there, I don't really have a reference to priority at this time. Does anybody else?
Do we know who applied first?
Oh, yeah, the first one that filled out the form.
Well, we solicited these.
Yeah, but these are both, there's two, and they both have said yes, that they'd like to
We
participate.
have one as the alternate, the first one that applied, yes, and then the next one alternate. So it's
That's what I meant when I said we solicited these. I mean, if we solicited them, then it's not like one applied before the other.
So, if I may,
Please.
you're testing my my archiving system. So I did send an email on July 14th to both of them, and Matt Hurt responded. Oh my gosh, they both responded on the same day. Matt Hurt responded at.
Do we have any idea whether these two business owners know each other? I mean, conceivably, if we told them that they were both in the pool, that maybe they would maybe one of them would just say, "Oh, well, you should do it."
Well, both were emailed. I mean, I emailed both of them, and so they were aware of that I was reaching out. Of course, I didn't express any limitation.
But they were both on the same email.
Correct. They were both on the same email, and I mean, if you're counting minutes, yeah, one responded approximately 3 hours before the other on the same day. So I sent it on July 14th, and they responded 1 day later.
So, but I mean, that shows you that it was an item they both were motivated to respond to also. So we're all in that same spot, I don't, as I say, either one's going to be fine with me. I don't have a feel for why one would be selected over the other at this point in time. Yeah. Does somebody maybe a commissioner want to just call them both and have a discussion real quick, just like you're mentioning, or staff is fine? I mean, this is our appointment, I guess, is the thing. So so this would be the first item that it's not going to be complete today, possibly. So I'm just acknowledging now we'll probably have a couple of these I could see from today.
I could call them.
Yeah, if you'd like to. Just call them both, let them know their situation.
Peter, if you could just share their
Is that okay, Commissioner Dare?
Oh, yes, I think that's fine.
Okay, good.
I'm happy to call him too if Commissioner Chang doesn't want to, so.
He's offering.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the next item, thank you very much, Commissioner Chang, for doing that. As I say, come to find out, we're all in the same spot on that. So the sheriff has put forward Dustin Miller, or that's his position already, is and a detective in the drug enforcement. So I'm supportive of that name.
Yes, I support having Dustin. I think he's a critical key.
Yeah.
No one understands where the black market production is happening better than he does.
Here we go. Okay. We're getting there. So then designee of the county commission. So my thought is, I think we all maybe have offered to be on this committee. Is that true?
Isn't it true? Of course it's true.
Yes.
I'd be willing to serve on that.
Yeah, okay, so all three of us are saying yes. I definitely want to be there for the first meeting at least. So how about we acknowledge that the first meeting is attended. It's going to be a public meeting anyways, but for all three of us to be in attendance of the first meeting. And then after that, if we want to make a decision about one of us attending or however we want to proceed. As I say, I can just see it, all three of us would be. Maybe we're all going to be there. If it's quarterly, it's maybe not much of an overhead either. So how about we just leave all three of us on for this first meeting, and we can go from there.
Is that okay to proceed, Peter, like that?
I don't see any problem, and the order can include all three, and I presume as long as we're meeting the minimum requirements of these quarterly meetings, that's what we need to document and demonstrate that we're administering this legislation as intended. So for now, I would put all three. Of course, the board can always update the order as things change, but that's how I would propose bringing it back to you for final consideration.
So then it puts us in a spot of who's going to run the meeting, as in this will be setting up the kind of the culture, but also just the mission statement and decision. So if this is, you know, an official recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, is the board running the meeting, somebody from the board running the meeting, or would somebody else run the meeting? I don't know if it's defined at all in the legislation. I have a hunch. They didn't give any, yeah, so that'll be a decision. So a guidance of us as a Board of Commissioners to, you know, who's going to chair the meeting. Would it be a commissioner by default or not? And I'm just laying it out here. Any thoughts?
Peter, do we know whether the two legislators are interested in participating long-term or just for the first meeting?
Commissioner Chang, I can't say that definitively. If I had to make an educated guess, I think their interest is in attending the first meeting, reflecting the board's invitation about the creation of the Cannabis Advisory Panel. And then I would just making educated assumptions that once the panel is established, they would defer to local administration, and to the extent that there was an interest or a desire to bring them back, you know, I would imagine they would be open to that. But given this is created at the local level, I wouldn't see them as regular attendees. Although, again, that's just how I'm reading the tea leaves at this time.
That was my one other thought in terms of who might be appropriate to chair these meetings. But if we don't know if they're interested in participating long term, I wouldn't want to try to nominate one of them. Well, if we're not clear yet whether one or all three of us are going to participate on this, maybe we could just rotate it. As long as
The three of us?
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm referring to chairing the meeting. Would it be a commissioner, or is this an advisory commission advisory committee to the commission? So we would participate and not run the meeting. So that was my question. So you're assuming that we would by saying that, but I was even half a step away from that.
We could.
So any thoughts, Commissioner Adair?
Another option would be to let the group that meets elect someone to serve as chair from amongst them.
Well, and if all three of us are there representing the board, and we have 3 votes or 1 vote?
Yes, how many votes do we have?
Yeah.
That's a very excellent point to bring up. I would think we would really only have 1 vote. I mean, if we're asking people to be part of this. Yeah, I know, looking at it, you wonder. I would think, yeah, you just would want to chair from the group, but not us.
Yeah. So, I mean,
We could also just not vote then.
These are the things we need to work through.
And Mr. Chairman, just to help the conversation, staff, I anticipate, likely next week, assuming I don't want to be presumptuous, but assuming that the panel's created, the date is set, the invitations have been made, then I think staff would work with the board we'd present a draft agenda.
Yeah.
And in that draft agenda, one of the conversations could be, the consideration of nominating a chair. So I guess the point of saying this is I don't think you have to solve this riddle now. We can come back and give you time to think about it. And again, if the meeting occurs on the week of October 18th, we have a couple of meetings to fine tune that. And that'll probably happen quarterly to share those draft agendas, whoever is the entity at the staff level that's going to be serving this panel for the foreseeable future.
Well, so then I think we should even kind of reverse engineer the content of the decision space, as in if we have this committee set up and there's a parking lot for issues that are not in the domain of this committee, or they are. I don't know what we're going to do exactly. What is the decision space? It's an advisory panel recommending distribution of dollars. So if there's $1, how are you going to cut it up? How are you going to send 50 cents one way and 50 cents another way? And if that's the only real official decision, yeah.
Well, there are three functions laid out, three purposes laid out in this charter. The dollars, public safety measures, and, issues presented by the production, processing, wholesaling, or distribution.
Yeah, well, and I'm referring to, if that's the agenda, here's your three questions. What are we gonna do with the dollars? What are we gonna do with the, the issues and, so if those are the three agenda items, well, it'll set the culture of this thing for a while once we start to do it.
Okay.
Okay, so, the three commissioners are going to be involved for the first meeting. Discussion of chair will be evolving. Maybe more clarity before the first meeting. Okay, next item is member of the public. We have 6 people. We do have resumes. We want to thank people that have applied with an application. Commissioner Chang mentioned that, there's different types of applications here, and maybe even the mindset of what they're applying for could be varied. So yeah, are there any thoughts or recommendations? So I can tell you, I've gone through the applications, but now that we're even talking, I can see that we got to figure out how we want to proceed.
So Commissioner Dare mentioned wanting to nominate Liz and also being interested in Mary Fleischman. I would, the first application, Andrew Assen, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name, sitting on the Soil and Water Conservation District Board, I actually thought that was an interesting potential perspective to add to this committee. I feel like I feel like people are very frequently talking about water when they are talking about marijuana production, and often the discussion is not very founded in actual data and information. So having someone with that kind of perspective could be useful in that way. Kind of the soil, what does this do in terms of soil impacts or water impacts or water quality impacts, things like that. So I think considering at least those 3 would be good. And I do, Jeremy Dickman, who has a legal background and a tax background, I think, conceivably that could also be a very useful perspective to have on this panel. But
Oh, I did want to make note on Andrew's application. He put that he's on the Deschutes Soil and Water District from January 21 to January 21. So I don't know if you noticed that on the top of page 2. Maybe he's trying to say 23 or 22 or something. Did you see that, Commissioner Chang?
I did not see those dates. No.
Okay.
But having known a number of the Soil and Water Conservation District Board members in the past, I definitely noticed that he was new.
Okay. Is he January of 21 till like is it usually a 3-year term appointment or anyway?
They're actually elected positions, and
okay.
I believe they're 4-year terms. So I don't know any more than that about this this specific member.
Okay.
Or director. That's their titles. Sometimes people rotate out and then they appoint other people into those positions. I actually believe I'm not sure. I know that Colin Wills left the SWCD board sometime in the last year or so. So maybe this is, Andrew was appointed in.
So there's a couple people I'd like to talk to on here. So I really don't have a specific recommendations unless I talk to one or two of them. And I'm thinking probably Andrew and Jeremy and Dustin. So I mean, those are just people I see their resumes, but I don't have a good feel for them. And so half of them I'd like to talk. And I mean, then I may want to talk to all of them, but I'm just thinking there's three of them I'd like to just communicate with, just to get to know who they are. Or we just make some appointments today because anybody's available to provide input to this committee. I mean, the domain of the decisions in this committee, the few domain items we're going to ask for recommendations on, plus other items that show up. You know, these, maybe all 6 of these people will follow this committee the whole time anyway, so. So I don't have a good feel for putting direction to this. Are there any thoughts? We want to just appoint a few today or appoint somebody today or bring this whole group back in the near future? As I say, I'm not too strong on this either.
So I guess a question would be, are all 3 of us open to the idea of multiple appointments to this public member role?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I think we could have 2 or 3 from this group. I think it would be important.
And I'm there too, yeah. Okay. So that was kind of my thought process.
So then, you know, these sort of apple and orange, you know, different people who would bring, you know, different really valuable things to this group. We don't have to cut it down to just one.
Peaches and pears from Oregon, right?
Mr.
be
Chairman,
peaches and pears.
Members of the commission, if it's helpful, maybe what I gather there's an interest in reaching out to the marijuana retail representatives. That may take a couple of days. I don't have their phone numbers. I just emailed them and let them know that Commissioner Chang is interested in reaching out and just having a brief conversation. It might make sense to identify a date and time if you're still interested in the week of October 18th and reschedule. I can come back on
way backwards
on the 4th, and that gives the board a soft week to reach out to applicants, conduct your own conversations, and then it puts us in a position, all things being equal, on October 6th to finalize an order and a charter. I just don't want to rush you, but I do feel like we need to lock down a date just so I can let our state representatives know if you think that would be, again, just trying to be helpful, knowing that in the blink of an eye, we're going to be in October and want to provide that courtesy to everyone.
Well, so let's do some homework on the member of the public position. I like the idea of backtracking from the date of the meeting and making sure we have that position decision made. And I'm looking at the next 2. So a water master is Kyle Gorman, or designee. So let's acknowledge that. I don't know that there's any. And then the next one is Gary Braceline, is a member for economic development.
Conceivably, Kyle could delegate down the chain at OWRD if he wanted to.
But that's an official water master position, so I think that's okay. So I would support the Kyle Gorman or designee also.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Commissioner Adair? Okay, I think she mouthed yes. And then
I believe that there's
I
a couple.
said yes.
Okay.
I said it on mute. Sorry.
I believe that there's a couple of people in the region under Kyle's umbrella who bear the title water master. So,
and that's fine. Okay, so then last one is a representative of the county who is knowledgeable about economic development. So I know Mr. Braceline is in the industry, but is in multiple industries, recreation also. So I'm supportive of that position, Gary for that position. Any other thoughts?
I believe he was recommended by EDCO, right? So,
Yes.
That's a pretty good, that's a pretty good endorsement, in my opinion.
Well, and I was just
Sounds fine.
acknowledging, I know he's in,
That's fine to me.
you're all right with that, Commissioner Dare? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good, moving on. So let's jump to the date, because that's where the other thing, to backtrack to our other item there. So I've had my phone in hand. So Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, October 18, 19, or 20, an evening meeting at 6 o'clock. The sun's starting to go down earlier these days, so it'll feel like it's getting late at that time. Any thoughts for the commissioners on one of those dates being better than another?
Monday sounds fine.
What's that?
I thought Monday sounded fine.
I would prefer not Wednesday, but one Monday or Tuesday either one would work for me.
Okay. Well, specific for Monday, and Monday sounds like it works, so Monday, the 18th will be the primary date, and if it doesn't work, we'll slip to Tuesday, but the 18th will be the date then.
Great. And Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, as noted in footnote 5, I presume it will be, the meeting format will allow those that want to attend in person to do so, as well as the electronic option using Zoom.
So if this room, it'd be here, correct, this room?
Yeah, in coordinating with Sharon, I had her block out these rooms for the 3 dates that were listed.
So I'll acknowledge, yeah, this room is available. I would advocate for in-person, and opening up the door and spreading out if we need to. I mean, whatever is the appropriate protocol at the time. But a much better interaction in person, especially for the first meeting.
And you had mentioned, just to focus on these finer points, when we first talked about this in July or August, I can't remember if you wanted to have any kind of food available for this kickoff meeting. So I asked the question just so you make informed decisions.
It is a 6 o'clock meeting.
Maybe we could do something like we did with County College and offer food earlier, and people could hang out outside and eat, and then come in with.
Yeah, we can figure that out. Yeah.
So yeah, we've had a simple sandwich or boxed meal available. So yeah, let's do that for the first one.
Great. I think this is all. Did you have something?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Just a couple quick thoughts. Attachment 3, Peter's done a very nice job creating a charter for the panel. The board might want to think about, we can include the chair, and what that process might look like. It could look like the Planning Commission. The panel elects a chair on an annual basis, and then it changes annually, something of that nature. We can come up with something like that, number one. Number two, the board might think about whether there's terms for, is it a 3-year term, or is it a 2-year term, or is there a duration of time that people, and then if so, we could include that in the charter as well. And then what the board might think about is, this time, all 3 commissioners are going to participate, but then the commissioners might just think annually about which commissioner serves as the liaison to this panel, just as the commission does with all panels and committees. And then we can just think about those things, and then we can flesh those out in the charter. I would refer to Amy on whether the attachment 2, the order would need to include the terms for members, because this would just establish the members initially, if the commission's interested in terms, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, as opposed to lifetime appointments like the Supreme Court. Maybe there's a shorter duration.
And I would suggest using staggered terms so that we have some continuity with the group, but not, some people get appointed for a 2-year term, some for a 3, and I think that would help a lot too.
Well, so then not all positions may be that way. So I'm just thinking the sheriff designee and the water master, maybe just those 2 would be kind of outside, just recommendation positions. So there wouldn't be terms possibly for all positions. But I support that.
Okay, we'll come back on Monday we'll coordinate on that in the next couple of days and put that together for you for October 4th.
So do we support the fact that a county commission seat would be one vote, even if the three of us are in the same room?
I would support that, although we're also kind of, we're.
Or would it be ex officio?
Yeah, I mean, that's another possibility. I mean, we were just talking about what is this group doing?
Yeah.
They're making recommendations, so.
Because we still have the authority in the end. Well, and that's, yeah. It'll be interesting. Any thoughts, Commissioner?
With that
Adair?
in mind, I actually really like the idea of ex officio more.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the cap is advisory to the board.
Yeah.
So you will have the ultimate decision over what the panel recommends to you.
Well, the important thing is we have these meetings so that we do have our funding reinstated. And I think it's really good that we're having this first meeting October 18th to get going so that.
Yeah. I mean, so on one hand, I mean, so a sitting detective from the sheriff's office voting on something, I mean, we got to really kind of even think about what we're doing here. And I don't know how controversial or how, what kind of topics are going to end up being even voted on. Other than, the charter itself, the basics. But if other items could bring in other items.
And Mr. Chairman, I think just the acknowledgement that the order could change to reflect a broader understanding of what this group does over time.
Yep.
The charter also could reflect that.
Yep.
I mean, it's not meant to be a static document, and I think if we can put these documents with the help of legal and county administration so that it's an auspicious beginning, then, this will be an iterative process. It has to be, and I think that's kind of what the legislation reflects. So I wouldn't agonize too much on the front end as long as we can capture your thoughts, your interest in a working framework.
Yeah.
We can, this group will meet quarterly, and there may be times, semi-annually, annually, it just needs to be tinkered with as relationships are forged and the conversations mature.
Yeah, well, and that's why I figure it's good just to talk it out right now so we can all kind of understand what we're doing here. So is there anything else?
I don't have anything.
Yeah, so
I appreciate the-
there'll be a version of what we think we're doing here. We took it down the track a little farther just now.
Today I will let our state representatives know of that date.
Yep.
And I'll let Sharon Keith know as well, and then all the other pieces we'll work on over the next couple of days. So thank you very much for the conversation. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
For all your work on this, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Item number 10, DLCD 2123 Technical Assistance Grant discussion.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Tarek Rawlings. I'm an Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. And yeah, just as you'd said, today we're seeking approval from Board of County Commissioners to apply for a 2021 to 2023 DLCD Technical Assistance Grant. That's the Department of Land Conservation and Development. This would be directed at two main goals or objectives. One would be to continue initiating, essentially, we've started some processes of the county's comprehensive plan update, and this would be directed at continuing that work to actually initiate that update and see it through as far as we could within that 2-year cycle. The other component that would be funded by this request would be a Terrebonne community plan update. So that's still a component of the county comprehensive plan, but this would be specific to that community, kind of in line with some of the sewer feasibility study findings, things like that. There's a lot of concern for water conservation and irrigation in that area. It's already on the work plan, as you're probably well aware, and this would just be a way to work that into the larger comp plan update, find some extra funding for it potentially, and all with the understanding that this is part of kind of a benefit of the delayed initiation of the comprehensive plan process is that one aspect of those benefits is we'd be able to apply for this. Should we be granted it, we'd have an extra $100,000 of funding to direct towards these updates. And then a third component really that relates to the previous two, the comp plan update and the Terrebonne community plan update, is this outreach and community involvement plan. Under DLCD direction for grant compliance this year, there's kind of an equity and inclusion series of criteria, and one of those sets of criteria is directed at creating kind of this equity and inclusionary public involvement process that can inform things like the comp plan update or the Terrebonne community plan update. So those three items are largely what we're requesting funding for. We have a total request of $100,000 that would be directed towards those projects, and then we are meeting that with some direct contributions from the county and some in-kind contributions as well. And with that, I think an overarching benefit as well is that this is an activity and community involvement for the Terrebonne community, finding out what the unique challenges and kind of the outcomes of any kind of public engagement specific to that community might be. This is going to help us no matter what, really provide detail and characteristic to that community, should it be used to inform the comp plan later or just for next steps for that community in general. So with that, I'm available for any questions you guys might have.
No questions for me.
And ultimately, in your agenda packet, there's a letter of support from the board. We're ultimately seeking a signature from each of you on that to include with our submittal to DLCD.
So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So the comp plan was scoped originally not thinking about these funds, if I understand correctly. So if we are able to secure these funds, is there more that we'll do on the comp plan because we have these supplemental funds than we had originally scoped out, or does this just kind of like shore up the financial certainty that we'll be able to complete the comp plan process?
Yeah, excellent question. I think the latter is largely kind of a big benefit to this whole thing. We can pad the process with additional funding, whether that creates new findings, new information, or whether that just allows us to continue with sort of this pre-scoped process. I think it's a little bit of both. With that, I think the Terrebonne community plan, we saw an opportunity in using some of those recommendations from the engineering team for the sewer feasibility study. And so in that sense, you could make that connection that some of this funding is directed toward these new initiatives that might not have been included in that original scope, but they're already in the Terrebonne community plan update's already in the work plan. This might really just give us some more detail for now. I think that it kind of lends itself to both of those options you had mentioned, Commissioner Chang.
Thank you. And then going specifically on the Terrebonne community plan, one of the things I want to understand is, does this help that community develop a clearer vision and a more shared or common vision for its future? As the county has addressed the Highway 97 issues, as we're talking about the wastewater concerns in Terrebonne, I don't have a really good understanding of what people want. What the people of that community want for their community in the long term, and I think that actually could potentially inhibit that community from getting the things that it needs, or working on the things it needs to be working on to kind of get where they want to go. The wastewater issue is, we're basically at crisis response at this point. It's not a real forward-looking, proactive kind of, what kind of water and wastewater infrastructure do we need to develop to have the kind of community we want to have? It's more like, we're at the brink of having a groundwater contamination crisis. So like, how do we just do something to kind of avoid that. And so I guess, so whatever, sorry. So where I'm trying to go with this is, does this community planning process help develop that kind of clear and shared vision for the community of what they want Terrebonne to be in 10 years or 20 years?
Yeah, and I do think we can definitively say this would be very helpful for exactly the public involvement, kind of hearing from the constituents themselves as to what the community they would like to see. I think twofold. In planning generally, you get technical information and technical recommendations, then you have public input. And I think that with Terrebonne, you've had a pretty long period of having technical information, technical studies, things like that offered by professionals and engineers and things like that speak to community problems and potential solutions to those. That is always, and certainly right now, an aspect to this comprehensive planning process. The other aspect that's more highlighted in this grant application is exactly that public involvement aspect. So setting up, finding where the best places to set up meetings might be, and then holding public engagement meetings, making sure there are times where people are off work or have availability, and then truly asking broad questions about what they want to see in the community related to how we can update the actual structure of the Terrebonne community plan. There's certain, headings and structure to it and things like that, but exactly, that's the preliminary first and kind of most important step of this, is to really hear from the public as to what they want to see out of this process. And I do think, just as an added benefit, that outreach and public involvement plan that's now required as part of the Equity and Inclusion Initiative, that not only works to capture the unique characteristics as really kind of quantified by the public themselves, but it's designed specifically to highlight minorities and priority populations. And so we've seen this population rise in the county. We're seeing a lot more diversity. And so this can twofold kind of offer insight into those priority populations as well.
Great. Thank you, Tucker.
So it's a request to DLCD for a $100,000 technical assistance grant. Is there a motion?
I move approval of staff's request to apply for the DLCD 2021-23 technical assistance grant.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
And chair votes yes.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Good discussion. Thank you.
Absolutely. Just a small reminder, this is due on October 1st, and so I'll probably call around for the signatures in the next day or two, if that's all right.
Get it signed next week or so.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, no, wait a minute. That's the problem. I see.
Yeah, exactly. Someone would have worked.
Do you need all three signatures or just one? Or just
There is
the board
a
chair?
spot holder for all three signatures. If that's, if there's any way I can help streamline that, please let me know. I can see what I can do. Yeah, thank you very much, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item number 11, discussion of possible update for a resolution establishing policy on undocumented structures.
Good afternoon, everybody. For the record, my name is Chris Gracia. I'm the Assistant Billing Official, and I have Angie Havner. She's the Community Development Administrative Services Manager. And we are here to present and ask for the board's approval of Resolution 2021-069. And like you've mentioned, it's a process that will help folks get through their issues of undocumented structures, either unpermitted structures or structures that originally had permits that didn't go through the whole inspection process and were expired without all of their inspections, either whatever they may be up to a final inspection. So just a little bit of background on this. This resolution that we're talking about today is actually just an updated version of a resolution that was approved back in 1993. That was Resolution 93-112. And in that original resolution, the previous board recognized a few facts that are still relevant and true today. A few of those are that there are a significant amount of unpermitted work in the county. The county permit records are incomplete prior to January of 1988. The county lacks resources to individually assess each property, and the county should establish a process to potentially legitimize this unpermitted work. And that process is is illustrated in Appendix A. So the reason why we updated, we thought it was important to update this resolution. As you know, we're in a huge real estate boom, and with that real estate boom comes citizens trying to sell their properties, and either doing through the due diligence of the sale through the prospective buyer, or just their own intimate knowledge of unpermitted work on their property, they come to us trying to get that resolved. And so with this boom, it's just a massive increase in those inquiries. The other thing that kind of motivated us to look at this again was the recent approval of ADUs at the state level. So we understand that there's got to be hundreds, if not thousands, of unpermitted structures in rural county and in the city of Sisters and La Pine, along with unpermitted work, whether it's plumbing, mechanical, or electrical. And so we know that once these the ADU bill requirements are finalized, they're going to be coming out of the woodwork, or at least we foresee that happening. And so we're trying to get ahead of the curve. And the other reason why we wanted to update this resolution was it was lacking in specifics, really. And so what that ended up enabling was the county taking a little bit more liability on than we think that we should by providing on-site inspections and kind of going through with each individual homeowner on what it is that they needed to fix. And we found that problematic because it's very easy for us in a short inspection time to capture everything. We have a condition where we had a gentleman, just for a quick example, they were turned into code enforcement, went out, I don't know if they were code enforcement or not, but either way, there was work done without permits on the structure. I went out to do an inspection, realized that I just happened to look inside a access panel that was kind of covered. And I looked in there and I realized that what the concrete that I saw on the outside of the building was just a ribbon that they had poured around. It was just nothing but rotted floor joists, no concrete foundation, nothing. And it was a two-story house. And basically what it was is we had an old shed that was built in the 70s and it had been added on to over the years. So, had I done a normal inspection list like we had been doing the last few years, I probably would have missed that. And so a few months later, we realized that this gentleman had put his house on the market. And in this kind of a market, we have people buying a sight unseen from out of state. And so we were concerned at that time that somebody would have bought this property, even if they would have gone through the checklist that I would have made for them because I wouldn't have seen everything, potentially got a final permit, and that new buyer would have had no idea really what went into this permit process. And they would have purchased a two-story home with no foundation. So all of these things really brought it to a head, and we thought that we really needed to get back into this 93-112, revise it for today's environment and some of the technology that we have online now that we didn't in 1993, and really get a better product. If the county is going to take some liability and responsibility to permit these structures, we really thought it was beneficial to put the owners more back on the homeowner and let them kind of do their initial footwork by working with private industry, third-party inspectors, and just put the onus on them to tell us what they're seeing is lacking building code-wise, structurally, or other, and then we could look at those documents and address it in kind of a more efficient and equitable manner, because before it wasn't very equitable and it wasn't very efficient. And so that's kind of the reason why we decided to update this resolution. Some of the major changes that we've done, we've updated Appendix A to be more user-friendly document for customers and staff. It's something that we can fill out one time after we do the research, and we can give that paper to the homeowner. They can take it and use it to work through the issues. At that time, we will scan that to a new record type, and so all that information will always be there. One of the things that we find is that they will come in, somebody will come in, talk to the front counter staff and get some information. We'll tell them what we think they need to know. They'll leave, and then they'll come back a week later and ask somebody else all the same questions. And it's just a repeating pattern that wastes a lot of county resources and time. So we really think this is going to be a great addition to that. Again, like I say, that information will be held on their property record for and forever, and so it will always be available. And that's about all we have. Do you have any questions that we can answer, or?
So the 1993 resolution is basically mirrored in a new resolution, but it's the Appendix A, which is the tool that's been updated, correct?
Correct, Commissioner. Yeah, and so the original Appendix A was a lot of words, but it really was confusing, and you had to read it over and over and over again to figure out what it was saying. So we thought we would take that Appendix A and just really put it into a checklist form and just to make it easier to use.
So my only one thought is proposed action, right, in the front page, remove, demolish, conversion. What about maybe putting remove and demolish afterwards instead of, is that our mindset is you need to demolish or remove? Oh, how about we obtain required permits? It's just kind of turn it around, make maybe a little more friendly that way. But I don't, if that's, if that's the messaging.
Yeah, I totally understand, Commissioner. And that's, and absolutely we can switch that around. I will tell you that there's a few other jurisdictions, there's quite a few, matter of fact, all jurisdictions have some sort of process to deal with these kinds of issues. And not all of them are in written, but the ones that I have read in written form, the first thing they do say is that it's always the the owner's prerogative to remove all the work, demo the work, and start over.
Yeah, well, just put remove and demolish after conversion and obtain required permits.
Absolutely.
Especially with the value of things going up, it's like, you want me to demolish that? That's worth $500,000.
Yeah, absolutely, I understand.
Just one thought. Anything else?
I wanted to ask about the role of third-party inspectors in all of this. So basically, if someone wants to kind of legalize their existing, undocumented structure, there would always be a third-party inspector involved in verifying the information that they're submitting to you. Is that?
Commissioner Cheng, yes. Well, how we kind of envision this process going is that the customer would come to us and they would describe what their situation is, and they would bring us pictures or any other documents that they have, inspection sign-off cards or anything like that. And once those are submitted, that's really the beginning of the process, and then they will be forwarded to either myself or our lead building inspector for review. And just in our experience and knowledge that we have, we'll kind of look at those pictures and say, well, it looks right off the bat that you don't meet prescriptive construction. Maybe there's a whole wall of windows, and we know there's not enough bracing. So we'll start to identify some big ticket items that will kind of inform us what we're asking for, and that may be an engineer inspection report, it might be some electrical testing, plumbing. It really just depends on what the project entails and where we go from there. But it would be a third party. All of the inspections would be done by a third party, private industry, until it gets to a final inspection, and then we will call us. Once permits are issued, we will come out and make sure that there's just something that the third party didn't miss. And then, of course, we always have we're always going to provide customer service. So if there's situations where it's just like, hey, this isn't working out, the paperwork chasing back and forth just really isn't working out, then we'll always have the opportunity to go out and do a site visit. This really is just trying to be a more efficient process, because we get approximately 100 of these inquiries, we issue approximately 100 INV investigative permits that we're trying to get away from. That's really why we're trying to make this a handout type of picture type handout exchange, because it just takes so much time.
Did you say INV?
INV is how we've done it for the last
What's
few
the terminology?
INV is an investigative permit. So right now, before you approve this, we have taken that 93-112 and we've kind of worked along in the last 30 years with it. Up until about 6 or 7 years ago, it was very loose. It was basically they came in, submitted what they had on paper. We would do a plan review and either approve it or not. Typically, we'd get it to approval. And then the inspector would go out there to do a final, and it didn't look anything like what they had submitted, right? And so that got us to thinking, well, maybe we need to do a site visit. Okay, well, so we started those site visits a few years ago, and they just became very, very onerous and very time consuming. And so we just felt like we needed to dial back and come up with a better solution. Did I veer off from your question?
Well, you said INV, and then I didn't know what the term, so investigative.
Yeah, so as an I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that is, Commissioner, that is how we document it within our computer program of Excella. It's a record type that
Yeah,
is
okay.
a special inspection we refer to,
Yep.
or an INV.
So is a special inspection the same as an INV? Yeah, okay, so a special inspection is what I tell people when they call. We've had this bathroom, we think we're gonna be in trouble and this and that. I'm like, okay, well, let's call it a special inspection. But yeah, so, because I've been on the receiving end of those, people get panicked when they try to sell at the last minute sometimes.
Yeah,
So.
it's our documentation internally within
Yep.
Excella is our program, and they reference it as an INV, which is the same as a special.
Yep, that's good, thank you.
But that relies on county staff going out and giving them a specific list on what to fix. And again, we were trying to get away from that because of the liability and just the lack of resources. We
Yeah.
just, each one of these special investigation is 3 to 5 hours of staff time, of just the initial inspector's time, not to include permit text time and just, that's, it's 3 to 5 hours plus.
But it ends up being a lot of consulting and
Back and forth.
education for the property or homeowner, yeah.
And, at the beginning, we thought it was a useful tool, and it was. But it ended up being where once people realized that you can just call the county and they'll send somebody right out for $100 and tell you everything you needed to do to fix your
Pretty
house.
valuable.
Yeah, it was a great deal, and I would get it out there, and sometimes it smelled like the paint was still wet.
Yeah.
So it really didn't do anybody any good. The only person that benefited was the homeowner trying to sell their house. It didn't benefit the county, doesn't benefit future homeowners, because they don't know what they're getting. And so at least this way, we're going to get a real true understanding of what the electrical system looks like, what the plumbing system looks like. Does an engineer feel like it's structurally sound? And just so you understand, that may not be required on all projects. We're not out to just hammer these people because they did something unpermitted, because some of these have been passed down from homeowner to homeowner to homeowner, and it's just unfortunately the most recent has to take care of it. So we will continue to do our good customer service where we can, but if we can make this process more efficient, we'd love to do that.
Commissioner Dare? Mute. Yep.
Okay, unmuted. I was thinking, when you said it was from 1993, that was the document that we just updated for Smith Rock parking for the neighborhood. It was a hard copy from 93. So 1993 keeps popping up. And I do think it's important, Chris, that we do it so that people that have an issue can actually go ahead with what they need to do. And of course, we don't want it if they don't have a floor. I mean, I'm sure there's some pretty serious issues out there. Perhaps we didn't have that many homes were built prior to 1945, but wasn't it about 113 when we were talking about the bill a year ago? So I just, please make it as Deschutes County friendly as we possibly can without overwhelming our staff's time. And I know you guys have thought about this a lot. So thank you for looking back to 93. That year keeps popping up a lot. I mean, doesn't it seem amazing though? It's so long ago and we're finally like, okay, let's bring it up to date.
It's about that time, Commissioner.
Yes. Government.
So I would agree, we want to make this as friendly and supportive as possible, and we don't want to, I can't remember the phrase he used, hammer on people who haven't been following, or who inherited problems. I'm wondering if there is any risk in this system, or in the kind of system that we've had in the past of sending people the message, just do your thing and ask forgiveness or approval later. And how do we avoid that? Or, how do you kind of send the right message? you really need to do things right the first time, but, we're going to help you fix stuff that, carry over issues from earlier.
It's a great question, and it's a legitimate concern, Commissioner Chang. I think by making again, a process that is equitable, that's in black and white, that can't change. First of all, I feel like people think that they're being treated fairly, no matter what the project is. But I think the other thing it does is word will get out. I mean, the word is already out that we've had this process since 1993, and I think the fact that we were pretty loose on it just increased the problem. So I really think, Commissioner, once this process gets out there, and we've talked to COBO, we've talked to CORE, and I think we should talk to CORE again, especially the real estate folks. I think once this process gets out and they realize, hey, wow, like every single time you're going to have to get an electrical letter and a plumbing letter if you've covered those things up. I feel like the costs and the additional just tasks involved that the hoops that they have to jump through will hopefully make people think twice before they do that, because the word gets out. We're a pretty small community, in that regard. And it's just amazing how quickly this stuff flies around the community. So I really think it will help in that matter, that if they know the county is serious and they know that they have to jump through these hoops, they may think twice, because it's definitely more expensive and more onerous to work this process out than it is to come in and get permits initially.
So in some ways, the wrong message is already out, and where this will reel it back in a little bit.
I really think so, Commissioner.
Well, it's the culture and the history of the area. I mean, I think I remember when we were doing the consulting of the fees of the department, the consultant came in and he said, I've seen this before, where you used to be able to just hide behind a rock or the trees and just do your thing, but all of a sudden there's just too many people here to do that anymore. But it wasn't malicious. It wasn't the wrong thing to be doing. It was just leave me alone. I'll take care of myself. But now it's changing. It's evolving. There's just a lot more density, a lot more expectations, and more value. When you're building a hand-hewn cabin and you're just wanting to make a living, that's a lot different than a high-dollar house and nice rural property. So it's just the evolution of the culture.
Well, and Commissioner, I'll just offer that we had the consultant in community development at about 2015, and I think Chris has been working on this since about 2015. Chris deserves a lot of credit. He's really been thinking about this and coordinating with a lot of people for a number of years, and we're finally at this point to make the updates, and great coordination with legal as well.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so this is a resolution basically readopting what we did, the board did in 1993, but with a new Appendix A updated for the times. Is there a motion?
I move approval of resolution number 2021-069.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Adair?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I'll get those minor changes and get them over to you.
All right.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Good discussion.
Thank you.
So item number 12 is kind of our discussion. The Board of Commissioners in partnership with the City of Redmond and Bethlehem Inn, and I asked for this to be on here, so this is for us to be discussed. The City of Redmond, there was the kind of the funding proposal for the Bethlehem Inn effort there. The facility for the turnkey motel was purchased with state dollars, and development of the Bethlehem Inn is ongoing right now. So I am interested in proposing that the county fund the rest of the Bethlehem Inn project in Redmond with ARPA dollars. And this is just for discussion. I mean, I'm just coming up with ideas here. To get this a clear path to get the project done, to have it available for the community in a timely fashion, making sure that since we do have funding, that funding is available to get this done. And, you know, there's other projects that I'm interested in the future, especially with Redmond, is there is an Oasis Village proposal out there. Needs to be determined, defined better, figure out what the facts are on that. But I'm just saying, I was on a trip to a rodeo in Pendleton, Oregon, when I kind of came to this conclusion about how about we just fund it at the county level. So that is a proposal from myself at this time. What are your thoughts, commissioners?
My hope is that the city of Redmond will actively partner with the county to set up facilities and services to help some of our homeless residents in Deschutes County stabilize their lives and get back on track. And I am, I'm definitely at a loss as to how best to invite and encourage that partnership from the city of Redmond. I am concerned that if we say, okay, we'll just cover the Bethlehem Inn project costs, then that might not set us up well for the discussion of the next proposal, the Oasis Village or something else. And I could be wrong about that. Maybe that sets us up great to have that discussion with the Redmond City Council. But I'm just putting out kind of big picture. I would like to see Redmond actively partner with us, and I have a lot of questions on how we get there, and some concerns about this being the right signal or proposal to move us in that direction.
Any thoughts, Commissioner Adair?
Yes, Chair Devon. I was told that perhaps if we, I was the one who was really supportive of this project. It is 88 homeless people, 88. That's really a significant number. Gwen runs a good program. She's had a long history in Deschutes County of running a program. She knows what she's doing, and I so appreciate that. But I was told that if we actually picked up the other half of it, that the city of Redmond would recognize that almost $500,000 funding, and they would give us credit for that when we were talking about doing the sewer system. So is that a possibility here?
So, I mean, I'd be hesitant. Well, and so from Deschutes County's point of view, ARPA dollars for Terrebonne sewer investment, it was already on a list today to say that, we may fund something for Terrebonne and this. So from our point of view, I don't know that it's going to offset any specific dollars. I heard that mentioned also. I would rather separate the two, knowing that we're committing to a partnership and not looking for, a response in some other area, I guess. Yeah, it's an idea, but I don't want to make that a transaction.
Yeah, I'd rather.
Commissioner, Administrator Anderson say something about this? I would appreciate hearing from Tom, if that's possible.
Sure.
I'm unsure, Commissioner Adair, exactly what you're looking for.
He's not sure what yeah.
Okay, I was told that if we fund the 450 on top of our original 450, that we could actually, the Terrebonne sewer project is, 2.1 million, perhaps our share of that for Terrebonne. And if we fund this, that Redmond will give us a credit for the 450, the second 450.
So as I say, that's a future project. So, I mean, is it a transaction to be mapped to at this time? I don't know that it is.
I mean, and I guess the question is, what does that mean? I mean, if we're asking Redmond to be our partner in addressing homelessness in Redmond, and, you know, in the near vicinity of Redmond, I mean, does that mean that they support being a partner, but they just don't want to put dollars on the table for the Bethlehem Inn, but they'll basically, you know, trade us dollars for something else? Or does it mean that,
Well, and I would say, I mean, this is what we saw. So remember, the city council, there was kind of an implied partnership referring to this $900,000 ask split by the county and the city. We saw that the city council basically started to go kind of, I mean, I'm just, you know, making round statements here, but kind of 3-3 and 1 maybe, and then 4-3 one way and 4-3 the other way, you know, so they struggled mightily on this. So at this point in time, as I say, I wouldn't want to do a transaction type situation here, especially for a future project, but this is the partnership in the community. We want to do good things for everybody. Having Bethlehem Inn landed before winter is really my goal here. So remember, I mean, the other part of this is when I came on as a county commissioner here at Deschutes County, we were in a partnership with the city of Bend, and the city of Bend was going to buy Bethlehem Inn with us, referring to the Bethlehem Inn in Bend. Community Development Block Grant was going to reimburse the city's partial part of it, and it didn't happen. So when I got on board here at the county, we ended up with a $2 million building that we had maintenance requirements over. So I'm just saying, we have history of this. It's hard for cities to get there, and I've seen it in the past. We ended up writing that off in a couple fiscal years, so then there was a clear title for the Bethlehem Inn previously. And it's just the way it's gone. Luckily, we had the resources and the capacity of the county, but yeah, we've done this before, and it's good to have it clear and free and ready to provide services when people need them.
Yeah. I mean, I want to state, I absolutely want to see the Bethlehem Inn project move and be ready as soon as possible. And I also would support the county covering more of the costs, but I really do want to see us build a partnership structure and relationship around these issues, because as we're all aware, this is a massive problem, and if we send the message that the county will just try and absorb the whole thing for the region, we're not going to be able to do it. We're not going to be able to deliver on that. So that's my concern.
Discussion there, yeah. So do all the public municipalities partner in providing a little bit of services to manage the issue, or do we get serious about taking a cultural step as a community to say, okay, I understand there's hard times out there, but please be engaged in our economy. Profit and effort is the way somebody gets paid, and you pay your taxes to get services. And we need to, have zero functional homelessness is a goal. But yeah, I mean, I would. There's a huge project out there to be done in the near future, and the Central Oregon culture of how we're going to deal with this. But yeah, as I say, so then I don't get to the concept of how about we both pull our checkbooks out and we both try to do this. I think Deschutes County proper has the resources that we can empower this play. And we didn't start this play. This play was started by the state legislature. Once again, we're kind of backfilling some effort that got started, but it's the right thing to do to get her done right now.
Well, I would either make a motion today or have it brought back on Wednesday. truly 88 people, getting them off the street is critical. I was just reading where 7 times more people die in cold weather than in hot weather. And as we all are aware, we have no idea what our weather is going to be like this winter, but we definitely, getting 88 people off the street is so, so important. We're almost to the 1st of October. And so therefore, I don't know, Commissioner DeBonne, either I will make a motion to fund the $450,000 today to finish up with what their original ask was of $900,000. Hopefully that's going to get the job done. Either I would make that today or wait until Wednesday. I don't know. Is Greg part of the conversation? Does he have anything he wanted to add? Because he said he hadn't put this on our agenda today.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
just,
and as
I just want to say again, this is the first move in what will be a series of moves that kind of that tee off of this. So we absolutely need those 88 beds, but we also need the beds that the Shepherd's House project is going to provide. We need the beds that the Oasis Village project is going to provide. And if we don't set this up in a way that that we invite partnership, people are going to look to us, to the county, to solve all of those. And then the other cities will all do the same thing. They'll say, you covered the whole Bethlehem Inn project in Redmond. Why can't you do this one? And that is that could put us in a place where you have to say a lot of no's. And then there'll be all sorts of, questions about the equitability of the decisions that we've made so far. I know we're talking about two things. We're talking about getting one project done, which is extremely important, but we're also talking about the precedent and the expectations that we're going to establish around these issues. And I am very concerned that this may not send the right message.
So I'm not looking for controversy at the Board of Commissioners for this one, and there's big discussion in there. This is emergency housing, high barrier shelter for homeless people going into the winter. We have a documented, need for that, obviously. My goal is to have zero functional homelessness, invite people that can and are willing to be part of our economy. State of Oregon is built on a payroll tax. State legislature's money only comes from a payroll tax. We can't provide social services for more and more people that are not in our economy. We want to help people with addictions. Housing costs are a disaster. That could, there's many layers to this thing. This is just one of those variables. As I say, I'm not looking for conflict here today. This is one of those variables that it's just like, man, let's just knock this one out. It's amazing we're talking about these kind of dollars, $450,000, yay or nay. It's just amazing we do this as a Board of Commissioners. But with the resources available, I'm still supportive of doing this to get rid of one of the discussions and, be able to go into a joint meeting with the city of Redmond and as I say, not even looking for another deal on the side. Let's just say this is it. Let's proceed with this high barrier shelter for a known service provider in our community. And government shouldn't be doing all of this. I mean, this is a truly public-private, nonprofit partnership. If private companies can make a profit, they can donate to their favorite nonprofit and help people in need, and revenue is going to flow in all directions. So there's a vision and how we can be. The future's got to be bright. I mean, let's just work hard for a bright future. So I'm sorry. As I say, she's on the verge of making a motion. Any thoughts on that now, or? I'll bring it back Wednesday if we don't do it today too. So
I'd at minimum like to bring it back Wednesday.
That's fine. let's do that. I mean, as I say, I'm not looking for conflict here, but I am looking to make something happen too, so. Okay, thank you very much for the discussion.
I guess the one other thing I'd say
Can I just
is,
say, Commissioner, oh, sorry.
I would love to see this, if we're going to move forward with this right now, I would love to see us also simultaneously make a commitment on the Oasis Village project.
Well, see, and it's good that we're talking about that, because Oasis Village is a project in Redmond, right? And it's going to be possibly like a version of our Veterans Village, so a common building and some cabins, plus possibly camping, right? So that, I mean, that's the vision I know of. I'm all in for it, and I don't know that the county is going to pay all that for it. So then there's a view of, how, you know, if somebody provides land, can somebody else, private industry, help build this out? Can somebody else, the people that need the services, help pay for some of it, setting the culture of, you know, if it isn't a full market value of $50 a night for power and water, at least it's $5 or $10 a night, so there's a revenue stream, because we can't just keep funding these things. So my point is, there's a big discussion to talk about for Oasis Village. What is it going to be? Where is it going to be? How much is it going to cost? And I'm in. But I don't think government should just keep paying for the whole thing for a long time. I don't know if that helps you. I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but it can't be a big ticket item for Deschutes County for the rest of the time.
That's why I'm asking how we develop the partnerships to make some of this stuff happen, instead of trying to just ride in and you know, pick this one off with the Bethlehem Inn ourselves.
So one of the other concepts is, so I'm going to jump tracks a little bit, just let's try to stay coordinated. Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council may be a great place to have either committee work or board work on this topic. As in, if Deschutes County proper, would we lead, you know, us, the 3-person board of commissioners, or would a committee of a couple city councilors and a commissioner be the right place for this to happen? You know, Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council, our council of governments, maybe this is a topic, a task of the COIC, or a committee of it, or whatever. So I'm just pointing out that, yeah, Deschutes County proper, maybe this isn't our domain. I mean, ever since I've been in office as a commissioner, people live in the cities, and Oregon land use, the rural stays rural. And that was it. You know, if there's a housing problem, it's a city problem. Not black and white, but generally the way you'd go. So now all of a sudden, we've got a housing problem with a homelessness problem, and resources are going to be, competed for, whatever, you know, whatever. So.
No, I definitely think that the cities have a role to play in addressing homelessness, and that's, again, part of the reason why I keep trying to, you know, putting the hope out there that we develop some, you know, some meaningful partnerships to move forward on this work. So the idea of setting up a, you know, some kind of a structure, you know, multi-jurisdictional structure, either with the help of COIC or someone else, I think that's a great idea. That, you know, I'd support that.
So there's a lot of work to be done in that area.
There's a lot of work to be done.
But on one hand, we could say that it's you know, we're proud of. Well, I'm not going to go there. I was going to refer to land use. You know, I just worry that the UGB at Bend there should have been some easier path instead of 10 years and millions of dollars when they wanted a UGB expansion. And now we're paying for it. I just see that.
And we're seeing it right now. Stevens Road, the
But it should have been 5 or 6 years ago implementing it, not having a community conversation.
I mean, the
we don't need to go down
the initial proposal way back in 2007 or whenever, I mean, it could have been more compliant with the state's guidance and
compliant.
State land use law. It is the law of the land here.
Okay. Well, so it's good. We're good. We're talking this stuff out. Commissioner Adair, so as I say, any thoughts about COIC working down the path of homeless? issues in Central Oregon. And I want to, I mean, what's the culture of Central Oregon on this issue is kind of what I want to, get out from a committee. We got that letter from a couple of city councilors in Bend saying, we have a great idea. Let's have a joint committee on homelessness and you guys lead. And I'm like, oh, it's just interesting how it comes to us. But yeah, any thoughts, Commissioner Adair? You're on mute.
Okay. It's truly incredibly complicated. And from some of the feedback I heard that from the Rogue Valley, the Medford people, that the idea for possibly that 10-acre property was actually, they thought was advantageous because it combines your services. It's an incredibly better utilization of space. And so I really feel like those kind of projects, and yet the dollar amount to run those projects is, I haven't seen it yet, but I have a feeling that they're really, really huge. The reason why I was really happy to support the Bethlehem Inn project is because that's actually a little over $10,000 a person, and in order to get housing for 88 people, and to me that's a good utilization, and they clearly know what they're doing. So I'm really I'm much happier in supporting that. I know that Shepherd's House does a great job in their programs in Bend, and they are looking into support, expanding in Redmond. As long as Redmond wants that expansion, that's always the question that needs to be answered. So, looking at what we're seeing, what's happening all over our community, it's definitely challenging, and it's it can break your heart, and definitely that's why I do believe the 88 bed project in Redmond is really something that we can get behind now, because that has a shorter term date on when it can be effective. In fact, I believe originally it was supposed to be able to be effective sooner than later, and I hope it's not like our Veterans Village that took us, what is it? It's taken over a year, and but that's 15 tiny homes, and it's wonderful, transitional. So anyway. It's a big ask.
Okay. Well, so thank you very much. I'm just kind of getting back to the beginning here. So the Redmond Bethlehem Inn, the agenda item, so they're meeting tomorrow. So that's why when I heard that, I was like, oh, let's put this on for a discussion at the end of our meeting. So I just reminded how I even got to this point to do it today, just so we could have our discussion on this topic. So.
Right. And I don't, just from the way that the agenda is written, it doesn't look like the council is going in the direction of making investments in these projects right now, but I do believe that they're going to hear from a lot of constituents tomorrow, and just frankly, I hope that they change their mind. I hope that they decide that they want to be an investing partner in some projects, and if we can at least wait until Wednesday to see whether that there's any motion in that direction, I think it would be great.
Great. Okay. Well, yeah. Let's just leave it there then. Good discussion. So at this time, other items. Do we have executive session today?
We have two.
Yeah. So sorry. Now it's 4:45. I just kind of got back on track about this.
And when we have got Whitney's letter as well.
Yeah. So let's start to power through some things. Commissioner Adair, were you at the Eastern Oregon Counties Association Board meeting on Zoom today, EOCA, earlier today?
No, I was not.
See, and so I saw that in passing, and I figured she'd be there, so now we missed the meeting there, but that's fine. We can figure out what the status was. I was just wondering if you were there, so that's good. You want to go to this letter. Do you have a copy of the letter from Whitney? This is for FLAP program, for the Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council.
Yes, I have my copy. I've read it, I've highlighted it, and I definitely would support it. Thank you, Whitney.
So there's proposed edits or anything, or?
I had one proposed edit.
Okay.
If we're to that point.
Yeah, no, I'm supportive also, so,
Okay.
and I haven't even read it because I've been so busy, but.
So in the third paragraph, the big paragraph, there's a sentence that reads, without the public service that CET provides to reach the Deschutes National Forest, including Mount Bachelor, many would not afford the expensive private services that would replace transit. And maybe we could just say something like, without the public service that CET provides, it would be cost prohibitive for many to reach the Deschutes National Forest and Mount Bachelor.
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit of wordsmithing, yeah. Okay, well, so let's, if there's support, let's move approval and then with edits. Because it could even change slightly from there.
Yeah, I thought the rest of the letter, I think it's a great letter, and
Yep.
and I just wanted to tweak that one sentence. So
Okay.
I would move board approval of a letter of support for COIC's Federal Lands Access Program grant application.
I'll second it.
Okay, any other
Sorry,
discussion?
with the edits.
Yeah, as edited.
Suggested.
Yeah, agreed. Anything else? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Okay.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Anything else, other items? Seeing none, we'll go to an